Welcome to Trial by Wine. We take a closer look at crimes that highlight how fascinating humans can be. Schmitty, Swanny and Clarkey visit crimes and run them through their jury of three, debating both sides of the case to agree an appropriate, if totally fictitious, sentence. Please be advised, Trial by Wine may include explicit or disturbing content and will include drunken rambling. Listener discretion is advised. All right. How are we all?
Very well, thank you. And your good self?
I'm very well. It's been a big week, another week of show.
Yeah.
One more week to go. But we've sold out every single ticket, and I've had people asking for more. I'm like, sorry, can't accommodate you, which is so rare and so wonderful.
Should have booked earlier.
And I was on a few calls for work this week, and shouldn't have assumed we wouldn't sell out. And then a couple of people I work with have actually said, oh, yeah, I came and saw the show. It was really great. And I was like, oh, that was really lovely of them.
That's nice.
So,
what's the connection there? Is it what's the connection with work?
Oh, none. Except that I just went.
Absolutely none.
Except that I went around telling everyone to come to the show.
Well, yeah, but you know, that one thing saying it, there's another thing people actually doing it. That's nice.
Yeah.
I'm impressed by that because everyone goes, yeah, I'll definitely do it, but you know.
Yeah, and then
it's the kind of thing you kind of don't get around to doing or whatever. But that's wonderful.
Yeah, that's really good. So yeah, I'm good. What about you guys?
What's news for us? Well, today is our 27th anniversary, so that's exciting.
You must have been little babies, such babies when you met. Oh, that's so cute.
We met walking home from kindergarten.
Where did you meet?
No, we met on the altar. We did not. We met in London.
What, math style?
Places.
Yeah. E17.
E17. Yeah.
Walthamstow. No, what?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, is it? Did I get that right?
Did,
that is right. Yeah.
We used to see the
edgy chaps.
The E17 boys driving around in their Beamers back in the day. Goodness me. Do you remember that band?
Do I what? Yeah.
Yes.
Because the guy who was the lead singer was like a short blonde chap, wasn't he? And I think that he ended up sort of, maybe whilst I was still over there, he was trying to come back in sort of like reality mode, you know, where they're just crawling, grabbing onto anything for a little bit of notoriety in the hope that they may be able to resurrect something.
Was that Brian, I think?
I can't remember his name. Yes, that's it. Do you remember? Oh, I think you knew them. Were they your neighbours?
Well, we lived in E17 together, right? So they used to come over to the House of Love.
It's going to really bug me now. Is that what I was just about to Google what was their big song?
The House of Love was their first one.
House of Love.
And they had Deep, Deep Down, A Rest Upon My Chest. And they had a Christmas song. I don't know if it went to number one or not.
Oh my God, House of Love. I remember. But what year?
1990.
God, that was released in 92.
Oh, it was close. Darn it.
Because I'm just trying to think. I must have been whilst I was at uni. Oh God, that's too funny.
So...
But were you guys actually there during that time?
Yeah, I lived there and Stuart was on holiday and we met at a friend's house for dinner.
In 95.
Yes, so that's one thing that's special. We've just booked a holiday to go to Greece and Turkey. So we're going there.
Oh, that's not very special.
We're flying there on Stuart's birthday, actually. So that's 28th of May and then we'll go there for 4 weeks. So that's exciting. So there's a lot happening.
I hope you've got good internet over
I know. We should podcast from the Greek islands.
On the back of our friend's yacht.
Oh, yeah. Schmitty and I will love that. Schmitty and I will love that. Dialing in from Perth. Oh. That'll be
imagine
great.
the time difference.
Yeah, it's okay. We're only drinking at 3 a.m. So
that's right.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's been...
Carl will be like, it's midnight. I can drink finally.
Yeah.
Yes. So, no, there's been a lot going on with us, but... there's a couple of points. How about you, Swanny? What have you been doing?
Oh dear God, I can't back up after that at all. Nothing. Oh dear God, I wonder what I do with my time. I honestly can't remember. We've been doing a little bit of planning ourselves because obviously we've just come out of our hotel COVID, so all of us are now back at work and school and whatever else. So we're just sort of looking slightly further ahead and not dissimilar, looking at finally getting across to see my dad. So just, you know, booking some hotels and stuff to get across to Sydney and the Gong because it'll end up being 2.5 years by the time I get to see Dad. Isn't that amazing, seeing as though we live in the same country? But it'll be the first time that we could make it work. So that's that was quite exciting. We started looking at it the day. And likewise, we're also looking at some European travel a little bit later in the year. So, yeah, nothing to sort of get too excited about just yet. But it's nice finally to have something on the horizon when, we've been literally, in the probably 4 or 5 suburbs for the last 2+ years. So, yeah, I've got some hope at last. So that's good.
Excellent.
Yeah. Yes.
Nice.
Good. I suppose we should probably introduce ourselves.
Oh, yes, we should do that. Take it away.
Absolutely.
I'm Schmitty.
I'm Swanny.
And I'm Clarky. And together we are
Trial
by
by
Wine.
Now, you were going to say something, Clarky, before I suggested we introduce.
Well, yeah, so I was looking today at our downloads, and we've got a lot of people in Australia who listen to us, which is awesome, and thank you all very much for listening to us. We appreciate it, and I hope it brings a laugh to your day. But over the course of this month, we've had some people from the United States who are listening, and so I just wanted to say a big hello to you all, and I hope you're well, and do shoot us a message if you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself, whether you know any of us or whether you just randomly found us on the internet. But we also had 2 people from the UK, so a big hello to them as well. And we had someone from Russia, and so I would like to say hello to them as well, because that one's a very random one. But again, I appreciate them listening to us. Thank you very much to that person from Russia who is listening.
Indeed. And we have in the past had a listener or 2 from Romania, Monaco, France,
India,
Belgium, I think. India, yeah.
Yeah.
So we sort of dipped our toe in the water internationally, but keep it up and keep sharing it. And I can tell you some of the band have recently joined us from Kyneton and now listening to the show as well.
Would we call those our regional listeners?
Yes. But I think
our regional listeners, our international listeners. Metro listeners. Yes.
I think, as always, it'd be lovely to hear from people because you hear from us every week. We don't hear from you, but do shoot us a message and tell us why you like us or why you don't like us, because, we have those moments too.
trialbywine@gmail.com.
Clown Passions 20.
That's right. All right. So what are you drinking? I feel like you may have started ahead of us, Clarky.
Well, yes, we have, because it is our anniversary day.
Yes,
but we are having
true.
we're having a Secret Village Viognier from Indigo Vineyard 2017. It's got a lovely little label on it. I'm not sure if we told you, but last week we went to what's called a pickup party. Now, that will make you think of all sorts of things that this was not.
Put your keys in the bowl.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Spin it around and away you go. No, so because we're wine club members there, they have a party where you go and taste some back vintages and have a bit of food matching and whatnot, and then you pick up your membership instead of having to get it delivered. So it was really lovely. How about you?
Lovely. I am drinking a rather nice Shiraz from the McLaren Vale, which is by Ivyburn, and it's called First Minister. Ooh. It's very nice.
That's very sophisticated for the pair of you. You're not on cruiser territory.
No. And Tony, who's sitting next to me, is drinking...
Kia ora. And it's Aldi's bog standard Sauv Blanc, but the reserve version of it. And it's really okay, yeah.
What happens with a non-reserve?
You can just take it straight away.
Yeah. Well, reserve kind of sounds like they've saved it for something special.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And what about you, Swanny? Are you gonna shock
me? Should I take a wild guess?
Are you drinking a...
Not today.
Coke Zero?
Well, it was either that or Diet Coke, because I do like to stock them both. And I'm going to do my little influencer. Yes, today
Coca-Cola.
I'm having a Coca-Cola, no sugar, real Coke taste. But I'm also backing it up with a chaser of still water.
Calm
so
down.
There you go. It's always riveting at my house.
You're
I know.
hardcore.
I'm trial by. I am the trial for you guys. I'm sorry about that.
Trial by sober.
Yes. No news there. Nothing.
All right. So, do you have a story for us today, Swanny?
I do indeed. And it'll be very different territory than where we've been. And I've done that very purposely.
The living God. Right.
Phew.
In having said that, it might be... It might leave some loose ends. And there's some things that I just can't account for, but I will go through the story anyway. But everywhere that I've read about it, it's bizarre for everybody. So it's not like you're going to come out and go, oh, I totally understand what happened there. That's part of the mystery. That's part of the the attraction of this story. So
Cue X-Files
in
music.
terms of things, absolutely. So in terms of things that sort of interest me, and everyone knows I've got a bit of a thing for pop culture and whatever else. This is a story that starts in New York, and the things that it sort of covers, are totally my cup of tea. It relates to a Manhattan hotspot, which was a restaurant, which was a bit of a celebrity magnet. It features an it girl who ended up becoming a sort of a brand of her own. She was a very beautiful blonde. It also features an Ivy League educated character or an author of some books, and of course, my favourite thing, Rikers Island. So, I've got a bit of a thing. Every time I hear Rikers, I'm like, oh. And I'm starting to get a real feel for Rikers. I've actually seen some aerial shots of it. And, of course, have you guys watched Inventing Anna on Netflix about Anna Delvey? Okay, well, I won't go into it too much, but she's in Rikers for most of the
so it is a prison.
that show.
Yeah, it's a prison.
So they show it is, but it is really an island. So it was set off, I think,
like
probably
Alcatraz.
Yes and no. I think there is like there's a road, like a bridge that goes across to it. But I suspect it was probably like a prison farm or something to start with, which was just away from Manhattan. So it's not as far north as I'd envisaged. In my mind, I figured Rikers was, a fair distance away from New York City per se, but it's not. It's actually like one of the boroughs, I think. So that surprised me, but it has lots of different levels as I understand it. So, when you're watching it on Law and Order, they're always at Rikers and you think, oh my God, they're such serious criminals. And then I think there are different tiers. And but when this story involved Rikers, I was like, oh, there you go. I love a little bit of a Rikers reference.
That'd be like blue collar criminals, white collar criminals in the same place. Is that what you mean?
I suspect it's everything. It feels like it's a bit of a holding bay for anything that goes on, within New York district. I don't know what you call that, and those boroughs, I think to start with, everybody kind of goes there before you're farmed out based on your actual sentence. So that's why I think so many people do time at Rikers. It's like before you, if you do bail or you haven't got bail, that's where you are.
Do they do homestays there?
Airbnb?
They might
I feel like the only thing you're missing with your infatuation is actually experience being there. So if they don't, maybe you should...
I've got to be very careful, haven't I?
Well, maybe you should start writing to prisoners there and asking them if they're happy to do a 2-week house swap.
Could you imagine that? Like when we go to New York on a holiday next, I was like, what have you got planned for tomorrow, Mom? I'm catching the bus out to Rikers. To Rikers. They're going. I want to just have a look. I want to do the tourist trip. Yeah.
And you're like, it'll be a real holiday away from you schmucks.
Absolutely. Go down to the concierge. Do you do any tours or are you aware of any tours out to Rikers Island? May I ask why? No. Anyway, so my sources are Vanity Fair, The Cut, The Guardian, Wikipedia, and probably most importantly, Netflix. So,
I thought you were going to say Lad Bible.
No, I haven't even looked at that, but I haven't had a chance because this is basically,
fair enough.
To cut a long story short, there's been a documentary that's come out on this topic in the last week or so.
Right.
So everything that you can read online, there's loads of, articles, but they're really just regurgitating what you've seen on the documentary. And then there's stuff that comes before that. So when they're actually talking about the stuff as it was happening, throughout the 2000s. So yeah, there's different sources, but to be honest, most of it is from the Netflix show, and it's called Bad Vegan. Which doesn't sound terribly enthralling, but anyway, we'll get to that.
Is a bad vegan just someone who eats meat?
A little bit more.
I thought it was, I didn't realise it had egg in it. I thought it had vegan egg in it. I'm sorry. No, you're a bad vegan.
Those shoes are leather. Get out of here.
That's right.
So I think the biggest struggle for me with this whole story is going to be my consistency with being able to say this woman's name, because frankly, I struggle with the name Gary. And repeating that,
Yes.
John Wayne Gacy or
This is gonna
John
be
Wayne
fun.
Gary. I mean,
Oh.
God
Say
knows. I'm like,
Benajewski 50 times.
I know. So imagine what I'll be calling this lady in the next, couple of hours. So I'd like to introduce you to our lead character, and her name is, and I kind of have to say it with a New York accent because then I know how I'm saying it correctly. Sarma is her first name. Sarma, spelled Sarma. Her surname is Melngailis. So Sarma Melngailis is her name, and that's the way they pronounce it. But it actually has a few more letters in it. And Sarma was born in Latvia in 1972. So she's probably about to just turn 50. She's a year older than me. Sarma and her family immigrated to the US, where they lived in Massachusetts. And she went to high school there. I can't find what year they immigrated, but she was at high school in Massachusetts, where her mum was a professional chef and her father was a physicist at MIT. And a lot of people know MIT as being probably one of the best universities in the world. So her dad was at MIT, which is the uni that's in Good Will Hunting, so they specialise in math. So it's fair to say that, her dad was a pretty switched on character, and her mum, by all accounts, was, earning good money as well as a chef. And Sarma herself was no dummy. So she graduated from the University of Pennsylvania. And this is something that I wasn't aware of. I thought, never really given a great deal of thought, but I thought Penn State was perhaps University of Pennsylvania. They're two totally different universities. And the University of Pennsylvania is actually the more exclusive one. And it's actually an Ivy League school. I didn't realise that. It's only one of 8 Ivy League. So for her to have got into this university and to have graduated is no mean feat. She's absolutely no dummy. She graduated with a BS and a BA, and she did an economics degree within the Wharton Business School.
I feel like I got a few assignments back with BS.
I double-checked that.
Don't you have aren't you a BS, Clark?
Well, no, over here it's a BSc, so yeah.
I did go and check that because I thought, is that what they call science? And it is. So she actually has a Bachelor of Science and a Bachelor of Arts.
A degree in BS.
But she went to, and you'll have heard of it before, is the Wharton Business School, which is part of the University of Penn. So she's a graduate of that as well. So she did her time at uni, and she was at a incredibly exclusive one, and came out and headed off to New York City. And when she got there, she initially worked for a company called Bear Stearns. She stayed there for a while. Then she moved to Boston and worked for Bain Capital. And then she moved back again to New York and worked for an investment fund. And it was while she was there that, I could imagine she was earning pretty good money. And there's lots of people of that time. So she's the same age as us, or same age as me, roughly. So in the late 90s, she was probably a really upwardly mobile young lady, access to her money, and she was a really good sort. But she said, one day somebody said to her, what are you doing? What do you really like? And she said, why don't you do something? And she said, what do you mean? I didn't think any of you liked what we did. I just thought that we were all just doing it for the money. And some people said, well, no, I actually quite like it. What are you passionate about? And it was at that point that she realised that it was probably food. And she would have had some coin. She would have, having done these kind of jobs. So she thought, okay, I'm out. So she didn't need to go and work. So she enrolled at the French Culinary Institute in New York. And she studied there.
Go back to that bit about who likes it. We've all had that job, right, where you go, God, I'm totally only doing this for the money. And I love that realization where other people have gone, no, I actually really enjoy this.
My problem with that
because that just makes you want to leave straight away.
I've had that conversation with so many people, but the difference is the people who worked in finance when we were that age, they were earning great money. People who were working in advertising and marketing, there was a kind of a cap on what we could earn. And I would say, generally speaking, I probably enjoyed my more than some of my friends who worked in finance. But they have more to show for it because they were able to do stuff with that income early on. So I do think there's that sort of, I wouldn't have known that at the time, and I wouldn't have cared, and no one could have told me otherwise.
Did they have as many japes in the office?
I'm confident that the answer is no.
Raspberries down their top. Put their raspberries down the top and ask the facilities manager why the air conditioning has to be so cold.
When I started dating my husband, who at the time worked in finance, he could not believe the hilarity that was a daily occurrence at our office.
Shapes.
And he would say, and he still likes to tell people, oh, get Carla to tell you about when she worked here. Get Carla to tell you about when she worked there. And then he will quote, like you just did the raspberry story. But he will say something that I've forgotten about, but it stuck with him.
The raspberry story is a classic.
I had forgotten about
and
that.
we were all walking behind you, giving away.
You can't.
I can't remember his name.
Talk
Let's say for
about
argument's
it.
sake, Gary. Hey, Gary. She had, raspberries, the jellies.
Yeah.
She put them in under
It's
her
her
top,
nipples?
so they looked like her nipples were basically, standing out on end. She walked up to, and she's got big nooks anyway. And she walks up to the facilities guy, it's a bit of a ledge, and she's like, "Hey, Gary, why is it so cold in here?" And we were all killing ourselves laughing.
I love it. Yeah, that is great.
It's probably fair to say I earned the money I deserved. But, I think throughout my entire career, there was a lot of moments like that wherever I was. But yeah, so our friend Sarma makes a change, and off she goes to the French Culinary Institute. And it was probably there or around that time, shortly thereafter, that she met I don't know if he was up and coming. He was probably already sort of somewhat
Gabriel
known by
Gatto?
then, called Matthew. Well, he's no, who's the egg guy? Who's the guy who used to do the egg ad in Australia
Peter
with
Russell
the beard?
Clark.
Peter Russell Clark. That's when she met Peter Russell Clark.
Where's the
Or Ian
cheese?
Hewitson. Yeah, where's the cheese?
G'day, Russell. G'day, Clark.
Yeah.
See you later.
Sausage fingers.
Anyway, so
Yeah.
oh God, my father has sausage fingers. My dad has the
Really?
biggest hands of anyone you've ever met, and he has fingers that are so thick and broad that he worked in steel, and at one point one finger was crushed, but it actually split like a burnt sausage, so they actually were able to just pull it and sew it together like a unburnt sausage. You know what it feels like?
Yeah.
Like a Frankfurt.
Yeah,
Oh.
but think of a big sausage. Don't think of
Big,
don't
fat
think,
bratwurst.
yeah, something like that. Anyway, on that note,
Kransky.
and we're supposed to be about vegans. That will probably turn everybody's stomach. So she meets a gentleman called Matthew Kenny, and Matthew Kenny has a bit of a profile already in New York. He's a chef, and together they open a restaurant called the Commissary in 2001, and it's quite the place, I think. Like the
Not
commiss, like
commissary,
is in
as
a
commiseration.
no, is in a
Commissary, I
commissary.
think it
Oh
is.
yes, that's it. Commissary.
Commissary.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
God, I'm sorry about that.
Remember, that's where we used to have our breakfast at Foxtel.
Yes,
in the
commissary. That's right.
Yeah.
Commissary. That's exactly
Not the same place,
Commiss.
but yeah.
They have a lovely relationship, and they're a very good-looking sort of young couple, and they are, darlings of the New York restaurant scene, and people are noticing them, and they're just sort of going from strength to strength. And it's sort of at about this time that they start to speak to a gentleman called Jeffrey, and again another really tricky surname, not because
Weinstein?
it's Jeffrey Chadro, but he's basically an investor in restaurants. And it turns
Chode.
yeah, Chode, we'll just call him Chode.
Chode.
And there's lots of restaurants that you've probably been to. Like when I really started to have a look, he had there was a group of restaurants called Asia de Cuba. There was one like in the Sanderson, I think, in London. There were lots of different restaurants. He did some stuff with Elaine Ducasse. So he was the real deal. And he basically said, look, I think you guys are fabulous. This thing that you're starting to talk about, this raw food and veganism. Tell me more about it. Let's see what can be done. And so they closed the commiss, I can't even say the word, in 2003. And in consultation with Jeffrey Chadro, they end up launching their own restaurant. And that restaurant is called, doesn't sound very exciting, but Pure Food and Wine. And it was a revelation.
Oh,
It
I
was
like
the
the last
first
bit.
Pure Food and Wine. And it was New York's first upscale raw food restaurant. Now, you got to remember, this is in 2004,
2003.
yeah. So, now it's a really common thing for people to
Big
talk
thing,
about,
but
or
yeah,
it's
yeah,
incorporated
yeah.
in other menus.
Yeah.
This was really cutting edge, and certainly on an international stage even, people were really looking to see what was being done there. And it was sold out constantly, booked out constantly, and a real celebrity magnet. So where it was in New York, not far from Gramercy Park. So the neighbourhood's called Gramercy. And having been fortunate enough to stay nearby, it's quite a sophisticated neighbourhood with lots of sort of actors and artists and writers. I would call like a clever neighborhood. You know what I mean? People who are looking for new things and happy to try new things, but also have enough disposable income to probably go to a restaurant like this and give it a shot. So
and eat raw food.
Correct. Which of course, you know.
Please give me $100 and have some raw broccoli. Excellent. Anyway,
not wrong. It's interesting because when you look at a lot of the food, it looks exactly the same as the kind of stuff that is now served in
quite commonly.
Yeah, but I suspect at the time it would have been, you would have been like, oh. And there's this one dish that she was famous for, which was this sort of like raw lasagna, which sounds horrendous, but people would go in there especially for it. Well, this is what I don't know.
That's what I would have thought raw meant back then. Like
back then it did. Now it means something slightly different. Now doesn't it mean that it hasn't been tampered with or it's totally organic? And like that's what I can't quite work out exactly what that stood for at that time. But I mean, there's no doubt that it would probably have been organic amongst a million other things. But it was just the idea of presenting a very, you know, upmarket, sophisticated dining experience. It wasn't just, you know, here's broccoli. It was, you know, you can see it's very intricate, sort of looks like Michelin star kind of food. So they've opened up Pure Food and Wine, and it is going gangbusters. And in terms of who is sort of going there, I've been able to find pictures of sort of like Owen Wilson and Woody Harrelson.
Do the gals from Sex and the City go there?
Do you know what? I don't know that they
About
did,
the right time.
But I did find a picture of, God, I'm going to get his name wrong.
Sarah Jessica Parker?
What was the guy who was with Smith?
North?
No. Who was the guy who was with Samantha?
Oh, the young guy. Oh,
I think his name's Jason Lewis, in real life. I found a photograph of him there with Matthew Kenny and Sarma and Woody Harrelson. They're the four in the photo, and I'm like looking at who they are. You know, and it looks really dated. Everyone's got, you know, like blonde tips in their hair, and like it's really of the time. But if I had to sort of try and encapsulate what I imagine it would be like, it'd be like watching probably one of the earlier episodes of Sex and the City. Now everybody kind of like,
when they're dying to get into this hot new restaurant where it's all, you know, small fish that are uncooked or, you know, whatever.
Yes.
Whatever the weirdest fad was.
So during the time, Sarma and Matthew, ended up collaborating on some books. So she actually launched a book in 2005, which was called Raw Food, Real World. And
Real World.
Yeah, Raw Food, Real World.
That's remarkable.
And they very much use...
Is that the crime we're discussing today?
Yes, the title of that. Yes, the title of the book.
3 years.
God. And they really used Sarma as the pin-up girl. And it was all about get your glow. You know, the reason she looks so beautiful and she is so lithe and so, you know, dynamic and such a good person is because she's vegan and she eats this fabulous food and she creates it. So she was really the brand. And she was the total embodiment of it. And when you look at photos of her in those early days, she was gorgeous. This little blonde thing.
A bit like Pete Evans.
Well, I wasn't here for the peak Pete Evans years, if I'm honest. I've only arrived for the Pete Evans years, you know, sort of the post-apocalyptic. Yes. Where he's gone a bit cray-cray. And I have to sort of look back and go, what happened? Why was he so popular? But I was aware of him when we lived overseas because I think at one point when my family was quite into him, although they don't seem to mention that anymore.
Well, he was popular, and then he went down this whole paleo and don't eat anything, and then he become a fascist as well. Pete Evans, he's gone right off. He's gone right off.
He just became
in some people's view. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, he's a weirdo.
He's been talking about, you know, false things around COVID now. So when he was talking about paleo, that was all the rage over here, and that was all going down really well. And then he's just been on a slippery slope ever since. Anyway, back to the story.
Sarma having released a book in 2005, so that was Raw Food, Real World. And she also did another one in 2009, which was called Living Raw Food. And the restaurant was an absolute hotspot. It was listed in the top 100 restaurants in New York, and 5 years in a row it was in Forbes magazine's list of all-star New York eateries. On the success of Pure Food and Wine, the restaurant, they also opened a juice and takeaway bar, which basically sold the same food, which was a couple of streets away. And it was called One Lucky Duck, One Lucky Duck juice and takeaway. And they also went as far as doing a oneluckyduck.com, where they had like an online presence where they sold some prepackaged pure food, wine, ingredients, supplements, and no doubt Sarma's books. So
I don't like duck juice as a rule.
Me neither.
That escalated quickly.
Gross.
I'm impressed that a juice bar sells wine, though. That's
So-
great.
In 2009, Sarma believed that Kenny gave inadequate attention to the financial side of the operation. So I think it's fair to say that their romance might be over as well. And then the backer, who was Jeffrey Chodorow, he turns out, and I didn't know this, I actually found this out myself, he was really taken with Sarma, and I think everybody was, to be honest. But he was also very impressed by her business acumen, having gone to Wharton, and the fact that she'd worked in finance. And it turns out he'd actually gone to Wharton as well.
Right.
And so he expels Kenny from the business, or for the operation, I guess, for a better word, and then he lends Sarma $2.1 million so that she can buy the business outright.
What?
Wow.
Okay.
And off they go. So, and that's the last you sort of hear of Matthew Kenny. And I've looked him up, and he's a very successful vegan raw chef still. He's got restaurants all around the US. And then there's sort of no reference to him again. He just gets on and does
really a
his
chef
thing.
if all you do is cut things up.
And chuck him on a plate. That just makes you a chopper-upper. But
There's a
no.
part,
So I'm
isn't it?
wondering, what were the terms of the loan? Do we know?
No, we don't. All it was just said that she could have it, that she would pay it back. Beyond that, I don't know. And I do know that at times she was able to give money back against that. But it certainly wasn't something that she had access to outright. And she was in quite, what will I call it? I think from everything that I can read, running a restaurant is a very stressful and very
Tiring
expensive undertaking. And a lot of people fail. So although it's on one side, I'm saying her business was a success, and she had an incredibly loyal staff. They adored her. They used to call her Sarma Mama because she was such a motherly figure. And she, by all accounts, she was just the most gorgeous woman, beautiful boss. Everybody worked there for like 10 years. Like, it was just this real, they had a vision, and are the first people who were doing it, and people were really behind her and wanted her to succeed. And, I think she worked incredibly hard, and it was just a real moment where something was happening. It was like a movement. The people who worked for her were totally behind that idea. And at the time, it was, a little centre, little universe. People were coming there, celebrities were coming there. And I did read that lots of gentlemen had a crush on Sarma. And one of those gentlemen happened to be none other than Alec Baldwin. And Alec Baldwin sort of lived in the neighbourhood. Mm-hmm. And
I'd be all right with that.
he really fancied Sarma. And I don't think that she really felt the same way about him. But they did have this sort of like, I don't know if relationship's quite the right word, but they communicated outside work. They emailed, they had phone calls. And I guess they had a friendship that he wanted more. And it didn't really go any further. And at one point she said to him, do you know what? I think you need a dog. And she went online to find him a rescue dog. And instead of finding one for Alec, she found a photograph of a dog that she instantly had a connection with. And she ended up adopting this dog, which was a pit bull. She's totally in love with this gorgeous dog, and she calls him Leon. And Leon becomes her, like, best friend. Like, she's totally enamored with this dog. And dear old Alec Baldwin, this is incredible, right? He goes on to meet the woman who will become his wife, Hilaria, who's the woman who in the last couple of years has had about 10 children to him. He meets her in Pure Food and Wine.
Can you take anyone serious named Hilaria?
No, you don't have to take her seriously, that's for sure.
Hi, this is my wife, Hilaria.
So there's actually an Instagram post or something where he's celebrating his anniversary, and he says underneath, because this is the woman I met 9 years ago tonight at Pure Food and Wine on a beautiful summer evening. I was outside and she was at the table next door, and that's who it is. So although he didn't end up with Sarma, he ended up with Hilaria, who he met at Pure Food and Wine. So at this point, we have this sort of point where Matthew Kenny's gone. Chaudhry's given her the money to pay for Pure Food and Wine. Her staff are incredibly happy. She's got the juice bar. She's working all the time. And the reality is that she's actually very lonely. And when she goes home, her whole focus is Leon. It's all about Leon, and there's, you know, hundreds of photographs of just her and this dog, and she just looks kind of sad, really, a bit lonely, not really that happy.
What year are we in now?
We're probably in around 2010, anywhere from 2009, 10 into 11, where it's just, you know, business as usual, and the restaurant's doing well. She is still has a massive profile in New York.
I wonder how Leon's feeling.
Leon's pretty happy, I think, as a rescue dog. Anyway, so it's around about this point that we find out that Sarma sees that there's a man who's interacting online with Alec Baldwin. So when Alec Baldwin is tweeting and putting messages out there, there's a guy called Shane Fox who's quite often commenting and you know witty repartee and quirky little comments coming back, and quite often Alec will respond to him as well. So she sees that there's a connection there. You know, she knows Alec or whatever else. So she ends up talking to this guy who's actually not in New York. I think he might have been in Boston. Anyway, so over the coming months, they start up a online sort of relationship, for the want of a better word, talking and, just communicating. And
that's odd.
Yeah, it's a bit, I think it's one of those things.
Is that normal in any
Well,
way?
if you look at anything like catfish, it certainly is.
Exactly.
But it's this thing where you don't realise people's public persona versus their private kind of. I think she was just a bit miserable, to be honest. Yeah, she had the dog and that was about it. And I think that the reality of running a restaurant was so.
It's like a 23.5-hour day. Like it's
overwhelming.
It's a whole life, and there was a lot of financial.
Hang on, but have you ever seen someone comment on a friend of yours post and then gone, I'm going to reach out to them and we're going to have a online relationship?
No, I have not. I think that's quite comical, as you say. But I'm sure lots of people do meet that way in some respects. You know, it's like, oh, well, they know that person. So there's that degree of, connection or comfort that you think, well, they know they can't be a bad person.
They vetted them.
They're pre-vetted. We met on Alec Baldwin's page.
Yeah.
Like, God.
Oh, God.
Anyway, that seems odd to me.
Yeah, it's a little.
But good for her. I'm glad she's found someone.
There's a lot more.
Is that
there's a lot more on where that came from. No, that's not the crime. That's just how she met Shane Fox. And they used to call each other Mr. and Mrs. Fox, and they just, they started to get on very, very nicely. And then it was some months, quite a few months later, before they met in person. He came to New York.
They called each other Mr. and Mrs. Fox.
Yes.
Before they'd even met.
You started calling her Mrs. Fox, and that's.
Oh, this is a little bit Kai Fortune, isn't it?
Kai Fortune. There's a little bit of Kai Fortune there.
Did they get engaged as well?
Oh yes. No, I don't know if they did. I don't actually know that they got. I don't know if they got engaged actually.
Did they watch movies with one of them blindfolded?
Is there a strap-on coming?
With a little bit of purchase from the knee? No.
All right.
Okay, we haven't guessed the crime still. Whew, this is a tough one.
Yes. So.
I feel like there's a catfish thing here, but anyway. Keep going.
Kind of, yeah. So it's difficult, and a lot of people have an issue with this, that you've got this woman who is clearly a successful businesswoman, incredibly well educated, beautiful, desired by, probably some of the most incredible
real people.
Real men in real life. And for some reason, she hasn't been able to either do anything with that or be interested in it. And she's just feeling very disengaged and lonely, and she strikes up this sort of relationship with this man that she feels comfortable with online.
Oh, I understand it. I probably would say I had the same experience in my 30s. About being extremely successful and so desirable, and yet not being able to meet someone, who I could connect with. If only I'd understood Facebook then. Anyway.
It's quite
I
easy.
could have been stalking Alec Baldwin's
You could have been doing, exactly. So they're talking. Obviously, he knows who she is. She's got obviously a profile online. You can go back and find she was in, New York Post, because she was a celebrity. It's sort of a celebrity, yeah. Anyway,
Does he have one though?
Does he have what? Sorry.
Mr. Fox, does he have a
A
profile?
He's got
anywhere
photos
other
that he
than
sent her and whatever
random
else.
comments.
And when they first meet, when he comes to New York,
No.
she says, "Oh, he didn't quite look like he did in his photograph."
photos?
Photos don't match. Chuck him. Red flag. Be gone.
Shock
But
me.
a lot of that's got to do with.
Down.
Apparently, a lot of it's got to do with what he does for his line of work. And
Oh,
it turns out.
Eating chips on the
Well,
couch.
let's be clear from the outset, he's
He's a
not a
screw.
vegan, and he's never said that he was a vegan. But he's a little bit heavier than even she was anticipating. But he says it's sort of for part of his
Quality control for the
job,
cats.
but he can't really go into too much detail about his job to start with. And then over the months, he sort of starts to suggest that, he's
I think you're on it to it, Schmidt.
he's working in something that he can't talk to her about. It's sort of really important, but it's dangerous. And sure enough, it comes out.
I'm wearing a fat
that's
costume,
why you get fat.
and that's why it
It
doesn't
comes
show
out
up in
that
my photos.
The reason he's, not quite the way he looked in the photos is because he's actually doing black ops. Now, I had to Google black ops, so I got the right definition. I was
God's
close.
sake. Here we go.
A black operation
Is he
or
a
black
doctor?
ops.
No,
No.
black ops.
And I don't think colour
Is
should matter
a-
in that context. So
No,
It's
a
in,
black
it's
ops.
under.
Let's
It's in
just
the
call it
dark.
operation.
Correct.
It's dark.
It's a covert or
Sydney.
clandestine
It's covert.
operation
Yeah.
Yeah.
by a government agency, a military unit, or a paramilitary organisation.
I've seen Alias. I know exactly how
And
this
what
all
is
works.
key is that it is secret and it is not attributable to the organisation carrying it out. So he starts this narrative with
Why
her.
are you fat then?
Well, it's not so much that. It's just
Exactly.
that,
None of
he's
that makes
travelling
sense.
for work all the time.
Yeah, but
And
black
he
ops
need-
operators, I think,
No.
have to be fit. If you've got to run down another spy and have a punch
Yeah.
up.
You're really,
You gotta
you're
be
getting
fit.
you're
Jumping
getting a bit
over
ahead of
roofs
yourself.
and
He has a
Sorry.
reason
Whatever.
for it. Don't worry.
Oh, right, okay.
And she doesn't want to get too.
He's the fat kid who does the computer
He's not
work.
fat.
Yeah, in
he's
the
just
back of the truck.
a little heavier.
it's not
than
how
she
you told it,
anticipated.
Carla.
I didn't say that. He's just,
Yeah,
at this
well,
stage, he's
that's-
just a little heavier.
It's
He's
not
not
what
fat,
I've
he's
heard.
just morbidly obese.
No,
Are we taking too much license
a
on your
little bit.
story?
Yes. Don't get me wrong. I think he might put on a bit of weight later, but at this point, he's just
Orca fat.
a bit bigger than what she thought he would be.
Jesus.
And she sort of thinks, oh well, it is what it is. He's a lovely guy, and we've got a great connection. So I can sort of turn a blind eye to that, which is very admirable, I think. He keeps alluding to this sort of thing where what he does for work means that if she's involved with him, that she will need a level of protection as well. So he starts laying down the foundations of his sort of black ops. And she said when he came to New York that first time, she saw on his screen, I don't know, is his screensaver? I'm not sure, where it's just when your computer's doing nothing. She said that it had an emblem that looked like the CIA or something. So she couldn't tell what it was, but it was clearly a government agency kind of thing. So he never was able to tell her who he worked for, but the understanding at that time was that it was important and it was very dangerous, and it had him sort of traveling all around the world. And
That rings alarm bells for me, because all the shows I've seen where someone actually does work in
Black Ops.
Black Ops, they don't say, I can't tell you what I do. They have a different job that they do. So, I'm already calling him out as bullshit.
So I don't think it took a terribly long amount of time for this sort of to be taken as fact by Sarma. And what's happening is he's coming into New York and then he's leaving again. So he's never in New York all the time initially, because he's off doing black ops. Do you know what I mean? So he's got to travel, and he goes quiet for a period of time, then he'll come back. So she thinks, well, that's obviously what's happening. And
When
then
I first met Tony, I thought he was a spy because he travelled a lot for business and had an Aston Martin. So I thought,
Well, there
must
you
be a
go.
spy. Yeah.
I've always maintained that my friend Brad's a
That makes
spy.
perfect sense.
Brad's passport was suggested as a spy all those years ago because he just used to go to the most bizarre countries to do the most. Oh, I'm off to the Czech Republic to work on an airline. What? Oh, I'm off to Finland to work on a shoe brand, like things that you wouldn't necessarily associate with those countries. But anyway,
Spy.
that's just to give it a spy.
Definitely.
Yes. When Shane Fox met Sarma.
I mean, even that's dodgy. Shane Fox. That's not his real
Correct.
name.
Correct. That's what it's real name. And what I love about that.
I got
You've
something
kind
right.
of jumped ahead a couple of months, but it comes out that that's not his real name, because at one point I think it sends Sarma an email from an email address of Anthony. Oh God, I can't believe his name is Anthony Strange.
Albanese.
Anthony Stranges is his name.
Albanese.
Anthony
Elbow.
Stranges.
Anthony Stranges.
Stranges.
The reality is funnier than the joke.
I know.
Anthony
This is
Stranges.
the problem with this whole story. It's ridiculous. So she finds out that that's his name, and she's like, "Oh well, you know, I guess that happens. People have other names." They go, "Okay."
That's his Black Ops
Well,
alias.
that's right.
Shane
Desperate,
Fox.
the poor thing.
I know.
Anthony Strange.
Honestly, what she
Still
allowed
not his
herself
real
to
name.
believe early on, especially, is just beggars believe.
Stick to Leon, honey.
So I'm going to start calling Shane Fox Anthony Stranges from now on, because after that he does go by the name Anthony Stranges, which is his actual name. Okay? So we've got Sarma Melngailis and Anthony Stranges. Oh, that's all right. I'll call him Gary, so don't worry. When I'm talking about Gary, that's what I'm thinking of.
That's who you mean.
So I've got here, over time, Stranges, who first met Melngailis under the Twitter pseudonym Shane Fox, convinced her that he was a special ops officer, constantly under surveillance, that she should provide him access to her digital accounts for her own safety. And so what he does is this.
How?
This
What's
is
the
freaky.
connection?
He introduces her online to a gentleman called Will, and Will is his IT/security person. And Will is going to oversee the security for Sarma, because she is the partner of Anthony Stranges. So she starts liaising directly with Will, and, you know, sometimes with Anthony as well. He is incredibly knowledgeable, and he knows he knows more about what's going on with Anthony.
The guy.
It's like
He's the Black Ops guy in the van.
he's the guy who, if you were in a Bond movie, he's the one who he knows a little, like he's helping, you know, him out in the field. So he would send messages to Sarma saying, or she'd be like, "Well, where is he? I haven't been able to contact him." And he'd be like, "He's doing something really important. If he's not in touch with you," but then he would start to say stuff like, "It went."
Did they meet in person?
Yeah.
Did Sarma?
Oh no, I don't think they did. No, that was all online. But he was.
And so, is it like, what was that other one that you did where there were the people?
Yes.
The stone in the front yard with the name written on it.
Yeah. Social media murders.
Aggressive.
Yeah.
That aggressive pebble.
Yeah.
Janelle really was too
Janelle,
pretty.
too hot, too pretty.
I'm just too
Janelle was
Yeah,
pretty, too
it's not
pretty.
dissimilar to that. So Anthony Stranges and his, you know, associate Will are basically the people that Sarma's dealing with. So she'll go directly to Anthony Stranges, but then he says, "Right, for your protection, Will take care of you. Will needs access to everything." And she gives Will all her passwords, everything, to all the bank accounts, everything, so that she can be protected because of the Black Ops connection. And because he keeps disappearing and he's off on flights here, there, and everywhere, she thinks that that's legit, and that's where he really is. So that's where it sort of starts.
That's amazing. She's obviously quite wealthy and she's happy to hand all of that over.
Well, this is what's interesting. I don't know that she is wealthy. And this is where it's very different. She has access to money that is not necessarily hers. So
she's got the $2.1 million loan.
She's got that. She's got the money that's going through the restaurant. But does she have a lot of her own money? Not necessarily. I think it's not, you know, she's not struggling, I don't think. I think she leads a nice life. But it's not that she's sitting on money. It's actually an ordeal, if I've understood it correctly, to run the restaurant, to keep it profitable, to keep them, you know, being able to pay staff, to have the caliber of food they need. It's an expensive undertaking, and I don't think that it was ever like a situation where she was rolling in money at all. I think it was quite different. But she certainly had access to money and investors, and you know, for somebody,
she's quite a good target. She's a good target because she's working herself. She's exhausted probably. And she's quite happy to suspend disbelief because she's lonely and he's not around all the time. So it's not like annoying her. So she can still do the restaurant and whatever.
Oh, absolutely.
And as you say, she's got access to people.
Yeah.
Didn't she pick him though?
Not necessarily. Like, I mean, I think it was...
From Alec Baldwin.
I don't know if it was that. I think he probably had spoken to her first. But she was, I don't think it was her seeking him out.
Gotcha.
I just think it was that just sort of...
Yeah.
They had something in common. But this is where things sort of start to take a more bizarre turn. And he starts to suggest to her that he's not actually human.
This is Strangers.
Yep. This is Anthony
What is
Strangers.
he an android now?
So what he says is, it's all this sort of like alluding to stuff all the time. And he calls her TBH, which stands for tiny blonde human. And he calls her that because he's starting to suggest that he's more than. He's not a human. He has got to some other sort of state, and this is very, very confusing, and it's very hard to sort of, for me to give you a definitive answer. But over time, he starts to introduce this concept of this being this like family or this entity that he's part of that really is nothing to do with the military or black ops. It's actually way more mystical. And it's the way it's been described, and described by Sarma after the fact, is he watched loads and loads of movies. And as opposed to the red flag flying, the big red flag
going off. Like, what the fuck, mate? Oh, more than human. Oh,
It's part of an entity. That's why he's orca fat. Because he's part of this bigger thing.
That comes into it. That is another, there's a reason for that. I'll get onto that.
All right.
So he starts introducing this as this sort of concept of sort of saying, I'm with you and Leon, the dog, the three of us. There's been, thousands of years that we've been heading towards being together, and this is going to be a series, a time where we're going to have tests, and people are going to be looking at us and assessing whether or not we're ready to go to the next level.
Have tests.
Tests, like we're going to be tested.
What next level? Of non-human.
Correct. We're going to be tested by, and I think he refers it to a semi sort of divine group called the family.
Not like the cult in Australia.
Correct. Not like that.
Not
yes.
like the cult.
No, not like the cult, but like a cult. Like it's
a cult. It's sounding culty. Yeah,
and he uses all of those sort of coercive control techniques and stuff to start to take a woman who clearly was very bright and switched on and running a business and had a huge profile to turn into a. Yeah.
Anyone can be brainwashed. We did it in Nexim. Anyone. They don't pick dumb people because dumb people aren't worth taking down.
Yeah.
Sorry. So, it can happen.
What do you mean by dumb people?
I mean that it's not often people who get sucked into cults, everyone just goes, oh, they're stupid, it wouldn't happen to me. Point is, it could well happen to you. It could well happen to anyone because they're so manipulative.
Yep, agreed.
Yes. And what's important, because you don't realise at the time, was just how much financial pressure she was under. And a lot of it comes back to...
Yeah, right. So she's...
Yeah. So what he's suggesting to her is, if you are able to trust me and the process, there is something bigger and better for us, and it will be riches beyond, and we will be fine. And the business, he never talked badly about the business, quite the opposite, because her dream was to take it further, to build it bigger, to be everywhere, so that she could sell this idea of a better way for people to eat, which would be better for the environment, better for humankind. So it wasn't like she was coming from a bad place, and he didn't poo-poo that. He just said to her, if you believe me and if you participate in this, to that end, you will be able to achieve that. So I think that...
And make your dream come
correct.
true.
And I think that's where she was able to...
And then we will ascend to the seventh moon of Wawa.
Yeah.
Nay.
It says
Wawa
here...
nay.
So that's why she'd given him access to everything. Ultimately, millions of dollars, of course. And he said to her, it will all be returned. And then, tenfold or else. But that a nebulous semi-divine group called the Family would confer to her special powers and protection if she only proved herself worthy. The last point is significant, given that, as Sarma explains in an interview, she was under a large amount of personal debt at the time she met Strangers, and she worried about maintaining the restaurant. And there are so many aspects of her personality which I think at the outset she was a mother figure to these people. They all worked for her for a very long time. She truly did care for them. They adored her. There was this fabulous, not so much work ethic. They loved camaraderie. That's the word. Yeah, at the restaurant. it was the place to be. No one wanted to work. They all wanted to work there. They loved her, and everybody was happy with the situation. But that's that public face versus what's happening privately. And privately, she's absolutely shitting herself because she knows that she's not in a position financially to continue doing this. The pressure's mounting. And so when this guy walks in and he sees access to money, he sees what's going to work for him, and he's like, well, how am I going to leverage this? And then he starts to introduce all this loopy stuff. And one of the things that you were talking about before was his size. And in the documentary, they ask one of the girls who worked in the restaurant if she was aware of the meat suit. And she went, no, like, you'll have to give me a minute. What is the meat suit? And the meat suit was
your body, it's your
the
flesh.
way he described this sort of his weight. He said to her, look, I have to carry this because it's part of the test. I'm kind of supposed to be repulsive to you to test you, because I don't think she was attracted to him at all anyway. And, certainly when you go there, it's bizarre, but that's what the meat suit was. It was this idea that because he was not a human, he was just wearing this. This is your meat suit. But isn't that just vile?
Oh.
So, and all this stuff, this woman running a restaurant, running around town, well, this is sort of starting to build. And these are sort of the building blocks of out of fantasy. And I would definitely recommend you watch the documentary, because a lot of it was recorded. So it's not as though she was a total idiot and she bought it hook, line and sinker. She always had this level of doubt, and she was starting to record lots of conversations. He was so rude and mean and aggressive towards her. It was awful. And he would do that thing where he'd say, right, have I ever done wrong by before? And he wasn't. He would get, quite often, if he'd take money from her, he'd give her money back. Like, it wasn't always a one-way street. So there was sort of precedent where it was moving around, but she never really knew what was going on. And it started to really upset people because he started to go into the restaurant more frequently. And then he started to come in as if he was, a person that really
had any authority,
had some jurisdiction over it. And the reason he did that was because they'd gone and got married. So you said before, did they get engaged? I can't find anything about them being engaged. I just feel like it was one of those things where it was all really secretively done.
They went to Vegas.
She didn't
for the
really
weekend.
tell anybody. It was just a case of, this is what we need to do at the time, because he probably needed it for some assignment that he needed to do. So she was starting to believe more and more of that kind of stuff.
Black Ops assignment.
Yeah, we better get married for my Black Ops. Woo.
Yes.
Okay.
Will said I need to make sure I've got a wife for my next assignment.
But Will was one of the most
Can't you just
detrimental
wear
parts
a
of it, because
ring?
Will would send messages to her that she would question something, and Will would send it back saying he's in the field. All you know is that he loves you and that this is happening and whatever else, but we can't say anything more. Please don't answer this message, or please don't do that. So she'd be like, oh my God, what can I do? Having said, there were other times. So she was trying to question things at different points. She didn't just go, oh, okay. But where he really, really got to her, and this is, a big selling point, when you see all the promos and stuff, he told her that through the family and the powers that they had, that they would be able to make Leon, the dog, immortal. And that is pretty much what I think got her over the line. She allowed herself to believe that.
If someone had told me they could make London immortal, I would have been like, sign me up.
Oh, but you'd be like, let me hug you in your meat suit. I'm good.
I can understand why you would want your dog to be immortal. I can't understand why you
Maybe not immortal, just live longer.
think that your dog could be made to be immortal.
Oh, I don't think that can happen.
No, but therefore, would you sign up to someone who said...
This woman's believing
I'd
in
make
his Black
immortal.
Ops. She's believing in this family thing. She's believing
That's
all this nonsense.
That's actually a thing, though. Immortal dogs is not a thing.
She went for it, didn't she, Carla?
She did. I think he
sinker.
totally knew what her... It says here, he convinced me I'd be empowered in ways I couldn't imagine, Melngailis explained. I would have access to unlimited resources so that I could help the world, make the documentary I always wanted to make, the one that would finally change people's ways and help eradicate factory farming. I'd be helping change things that I'd been dreaming about quietly. I could help whoever I want and stay forever young. That was it. So she would stay forever young, he would stay forever young, and Leon would be immortal. So those are the things that are the soundbite. Yeah.
Just turn them into vampires.
At what point do you go from the unlikely to the impossible?
Oh, yeah, I know.
Like,
It's bizarre, isn't it?
yeah.
See, red meat's good for you.
I'm going to have to do it again.
Not too close though.
It just feels appropriate. Oh, was it too loud?
It's quite
last
loud,
time?
yeah.
I'll hold it back here a bit. Is that still loud?
Yep.
Fairly.
Shut up! It's like an alarm clock in the morning. I don't know how to turn it
Ears are
off.
bleeding.
It just, like the whole thing, you'll be more successful, blah, 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 I can get, but your dog's going to be immortal. You're going to be young forever. Oh, that's a point, a moment in time where you go, I'm going to just believe everything he tells me, regardless of what it is, or hang on a minute, mate.
Yeah. It's a stretch, isn't it? It is a stretch. So when...
Well, no, I think the first bit's a stretch. When you're into impossible territory,
I was being sarcastic.
that's just a blatant
Yeah.
lie. Yeah. Oh, right. Sorry. Yes, gotcha then. It's a very big stretch. It's like a 20-meter stretch limo
Correct.
with 4 wheels.
Well, and this is where I think people struggle. It just becomes ridiculous. I mean, at what point... And it's very interesting because she's been interviewed about all this, so you can watch it, and she just seems very, I don't know, a bit lost, sort of, she talks about it, and people say it's like someone who's been involved in a cult, where she was totally
It's
brainwashed, and she's just
exactly the same.
just
Brainwashed.
just
It's
engaged.
very like it.
Yeah.
Like however many people in Jonestown quite happily, not all of them, but a lot of them quite happily drank the Flavour Aid. It wasn't Kool-Aid. And died and committed suicide, hundreds of them, because they believed what Jim Jones was telling them.
Yep.
What was the one you told us the other day where they got crucified? They all locked up
On
the house.
Switzerland, was it?
Yeah, I mean they were very excited. I mean that was yeah, you're right. I mean that was just as ridiculous that they believed something that was impossible. Like, oh, we'll kill her. She told us to kill her, but don't worry, she'll be resurrected. It's the same thing. It's amazing what people will believe in certain circumstances, and especially if they've, like in her situation, he's tapped into her vulnerabilities and he's chipped and chipped and chipped, and as you say, using coercive control, like
Yeah.
it's serious abuse. And yes, you should think to yourself, well, didn't you think that was crazy? But by the time that happens, no, I'm too far down the rabbit hole to see it as crazy anymore.
Because what they often say is
Yeah,
the reality
I get
is
that.
worse than that, because they think, gosh, if this is really all bullshit,
What have I got?
and I have to face reality on the other side and deal with what I've now done, I don't know if I can handle it. I'll just put my head down and keep going. So what was Shane Fox, a la Anthony Strange's doing? What was, as she starts to descend into madness, I guess, in some ways, certainly her reactions to things and the things that she's allowing to have happen, what's he doing? Well, he's on the up and up. On the, the flip side, he's going to the restaurant more often. He's asserting himself there, pissing everybody off. They know he's a con man. They can feel it. They can
see it.
They can see it. Yeah. And she's going to the restaurant less and less. And then what he's doing is he's basically asking her for money and getting her to wire money. And it's always under the guise of, I've got to have this sent to me now. It's got to be done immediately. I'm in
I'm
grave
in
danger.
Tehran.
I mean, honestly.
Bail me out.
And they introduced another gentleman at this point who is a Russian who worked at a bar nearby, and he'd befriended him, and his name was Nazim, and he kind of used Nazim as this sort of like, I don't know, in some ways he's a bit of a buddy. He got some money out of him and said they were going to set up businesses. So Nazim was also going to the restaurant, and people were literally like, your alarm bell can go off now. All of a sudden you've got some, Russian bloke coming into the restaurant as well, next to Mr. Shady. So I think that the two of them must have looked like really
Unless he was
dodgy.
in Black Ops.
Real Slim Shady, please stand up. Please stand up. Please
Please
stand
stand
up.
up.
It was super shady. So they were sort of reaching out to Sarma, but at this point, still in a really polite way. What's happening? Trying to get a handle
So
on
Sarma, tell
what
us
she
about
was
your
doing.
crazy boyfriend and
Now husband. They didn't know that they were
yeah.
married. Yeah.
what's going on there? When
And
are you
then
going to break up?
And what this guy Nazim is able to sort of realise is that he thinks Sarma's a really good person and that she is being manipulated totally by Anthony. And he knows that because he's kind of being used, I guess, himself, and he's being a bit of a driver. You know how in New York everyone's got a driver? So Anthony Driver, it turned out, he would turn up, but more often than not, it would actually be a car from a casino. So what was happening is if you're a high roller, they'll get you, driven around from A to B or get you out to casino. So what looked like, Anthony had some real dosh and was doing stuff. It was actually the casino that was paying or covering the costs of the cars because he was going out and spending such vast sums of money out there.
So he was just basically gambling all her money away and other people's. Right?
Totally. But he was a very successful gambler from what I can understand. He was putting a hell of a lot of money through and winning a lot and obviously losing a lot too. But he was a big-time gambler. So when he was off on a black op, chances are that sometimes he was either in Vegas or even somewhere. I was surprised he was in Massachusetts. I didn't even know they had casinos there, but I was surprised.
Vegas. Yeah.
So around about the same time, and this is a good question, where was her family? So what we find out is that he's in touch with them. And I didn't realise this to start with, but he has control of all her emails addresses because remember Will?
Yeah, because
Will has access to every part of it.
Technical security
So he can,
guy,
correct. He could send emails as Sarma. He could send emails as other people representing something. Like it was just, I don't know what she was doing. She's just at home asleep with the dog. I don't know. But he was running all this behind the scenes. He contacted her father and asked to meet. And I think the father said, not without Sarma, I'm not comfortable. He contacted her sister and the same thing. And he kept alluding to the fact that she had mental health issues and that he was concerned about her and that things were not great. So it was, again, painting this picture of somebody who was not right in the head kind of thing. So he was saying that he was looking out for her and, it was concern, where in actual fact he was totally the cause of it.
This is, again, a standard abuser's behaviour of isolating a person from their family. You had the coercive control, you have the telling the family that it's gaslighting. This person's the problem. We all need to care about her because she's the crazy one. And it'll be clearly crazy when she turns around and tells everyone that I told her that she could make a dog immortal. Of course I would never have said that. That couldn't possibly have happened. He's piece of work.
Oh, God, yeah.
It was amazing. And then at one point, he sends her to Rome. This is where
Rome.
There's so many things that you don't quite understand. I know, but he sends her to Rome for 10 days.
Punishment?
And when he gets there, she has a test. And the test is that she has to find, I can't remember what it was, it was like $200,000. She had to find an investor. And the thing was, it did appear that when she was in New York, she seemed to have access to a lot of people who would give her money. And I can kind of understand why. There's probably a lot of people who've got a lot of money and she had a massive profile, and if she asked for it, they were like, yeah, your business is successful. But I don't know who the hell she asked the money for in Rome, but it was all that thing of it's down to the wire. The family are watching you. If you can't handle this test, then you're not going to get to the next level kind of thing.
The old next level trick.
Yes. It's the suffering now to get the happily ever after. And he always says to her, you bought into this. This is not I told you what was going to happen. You bought into the happily ever after. This is the deal. You deliver this or we don't have it. So you decide. And he would be screaming at her and saying to her, if I tell you to, wire money tomorrow, are you going to do it? And then she'd pause and then he'd be like, if I tell you to take all your money out of the bank and light it on fire, you do it. Like he was just abusing her kind of thing. And she would sort of push back, but then invariably we'd get to the next point and then she would have done another transaction. And it just sort of escalates. She kept going on, not again. And I've already sent you this much money. And he was like, you're really not trusting the process. You have to totally buy into me. Correct. Oh God, it was just so awful. And at the same time, it was all these grueling sort of emotional tests that he would, put her through. And then I think there was some sexual stuff as well, but I don't really want to go into that too much, but there's not much. So that's where things have sort of got to. And it's starting to unravel at an increasing rate. And at one point in 2014, she disappears. It's probably when she's gone to Rome. I don't know. She just sort of keeps coming and going. At one point, they travel through Europe and they don't stay in one place. They just keep moving. So she's not at the restaurant. The restaurant's kind of running itself. And, they spoke to the staff and they're trying to get in touch with her, but she just becomes less and less and less available. And the stuff that she's sending back as responses, even if they were her, who knows? And it's always like, don't worry about that. Or, yeah, that's
also
okay.
known as more and more
And then in
isolated.
2014, correct, yeah. And she doesn't even know where she's going. This is where it's sort of infuriating, where you just go, what's also difficult for the staff back at the restaurant. So I think it was probably the restaurant shut once in July of 2014 for a month because she didn't pay the wages. So they put signs up on the restaurant, like to the people who would normally dine there or whatever else, saying a month's worth of wages haven't been paid. So, what are we going to do? So she sends them notes saying, oh, don't worry, it'll all be sorted. It was just a banking glitch or whatever else. And they end up being paid and everyone comes back to work. And she's just not there. One of the guys gets in touch with her and suggests what she's doing is illegal. And so she sacks him and then he leaves and goes.
So what was that? Someone said raw food's illegal.
No, not paying your staff.
Oh, yeah. No,
so he
illegal.
basically, and he said, look, I was really annoyed and I was probably more aggressive than I needed to be. He said, but I was. And basically she sacked him on the spot. Anyway, he went into some other business consultancy and they opened up around the corner. He said, most of the staff went with me and they worked around the corner. He said, but as soon as it opened back up again, they went straight back because they loved the brand and they loved working for her. They had loved working for her. Yep. Time goes on again and then they're really starting to take more and more money out of the business account, and he's having to take the money out of Pure Food and Wine into her personal account. And then off to
sorry,
his,
can I just ask,
so
is Pure Food and Wine in her name at this stage? I know they're married, but is that joint debt that he's dragging them into, or is it?
No, I don't think so. I think that's separate because she's taking the money out of Pure Food and Wine into her own personal account and then onto
it away.
His.
Yeah. But so he's putting her in debt, not them in debt.
That's right.
Yeah. But so in terms of that control, it's more about this is detrimental to her more so than to him.
Mm-hmm.
After the sort of silliness of the meat suit and the silliness of Leon living forever and all that kind of stuff where just beggars belief, he then asks her to arrange a meeting with her investor, who is Jeffrey Chadro, and he wants to meet him as this other man. So he's got another persona who's another restaurateur, and he's going to speak to him about getting investment for another restaurant. And then there's this whole series of meetings that don't happen. So the legitimate guy, Jeffrey's waiting to meet this guy because Sarma has introduced him, and he still thinks Sarma is, the bee's knees because he's not so aware of, he's not aware of what's going on with Anthony Strangers. But it's that thing of going, even this guy, I wouldn't say quite fell for it, but I think the guy cancelled 3 meetings. And at one point he said, they were supposed to me. He goes, I missed my flight. And he said, well, you didn't miss your flight half an hour ago. You would have missed your flight from Boston at 4 o'clock this afternoon if we're having a meeting at, 7:30 tonight. And it's that thing where people go, oh, well, but, Sarma introduced us or whatever else. And then they were due to have another meeting. And then he would never plan to go to this meeting, but he sends Sarma along. So she goes and meets Jeffrey Chadwick in Miami, and he's like, well, where's your friend? He's not very reliable. I mean, I'm thinking that you're a really professional business guy. I'm so confused why you're even now a little bit sort of like, I don't say buy into it, but you're not going, this is bullshit. Hello, alarm bells.
He likes her.
But he's buying into her.
Yeah, and he does. Yeah. And that's the charm of her, in everybody standing by her for as long as they have and waiting for her to wake up.
But I'm wondering what he was expecting was going to come. He being Shane Fox was going to come. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was he hoping that
just more money, more investment?
But was he hoping that she would, do the deal for him in his absence? Because otherwise, it sounds like a terrible strategy.
Because he knew that because of the charm of her and her relationship with Jeffrey, he's right.
Otherwise, it'll be quite hard to explain why someone else has the same meat suit as him, but it's actually.
But also, it's
I just
risky.
Borrowed your partner's meat suit. Sorry,
but it's also risky because if she meets with him, I'm really good with names, but you know who I'm talking about.
Jeffrey,
yeah, and they sit down and go, God, it's the 3rd time he hasn't shown up.
It's weird,
and then Jeffrey goes, are you sure he's legit? And she goes, well, you've backed me in the past.
And that's where it's annoying.
From Shane's point of view, this is something that I think is a very risky trick to try to pull because it could 100% backfire on him.
Strangeness is relying on the level of manipulation that he's got
Correct.
over her.
And that's
That
the
no
risk.
matter what anyone else says, she won't
But
change
that's
her
the
mind.
risk that because he could actually do that.
You're absolutely right, but I at this point in time, how far down this path she's gone, I'm not sure it's that big a risk. I know what you're saying, but
Rabbit hole.
she seems so under the thumb at this point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It actually borders on boring at this point because it's just like, oh, this is just stupid. Like, where are you headed with all of this? Like, I mean, how much money is she going to get access to? Because she's, constantly transferring bits and he's threatening her again. And I'm like, well, is there a timeline? Like, what's he saying to her? And they don't sort of allude to that. But she sounds exhausted by it all. And she's like, I've had enough. Do you know what I mean?
It's hard to unpick, isn't it?
So
after
in her community,
to try to make sense.
yeah. So
of it.
she's talking to him, saying in the recordings that they've got, and you'll be able to listen to that. And you're thinking she's so close to saying "fuck off," I know, but she just never seems to. And then she comes through again, and she does the money. And God knows, sometimes I don't know where she got the bloody money from, but she did. And he's like, well done, darling. I knew you could be trusted. You're that step closer. I know they're testing us. Well done. So he takes her away from New York. And at first she doesn't even know where they're going. And she's like, we just drove and they end up in Las Vegas and they live in Vegas. Now you got to remember, she's a vegan. All of us have been to the US. You know how difficult it is to get
Vegetables.
Clean, healthy food, let alone Vegas. And she talks about her time there. She basically stayed in a hotel room for the entire time. Like, it was months and months while he gambled.
Seriously?
And then she was still not at work. Yes, it was just bizarre. And that's where you start to get sort of like annoyed because clearly he's not doing black ops now. Clearly he's just gambling. The ruses, and this is where I get annoyed. It's like, okay, well, I know what you've been led to believe puts you in a really embarrassing understatement predicament. But then she just sort of becomes this sort of shell of herself. And so they stay in Vegas for a number of months. Then they go back to New York again, and people at the restaurant say, oh, they saw her, they didn't see her, they communicated with her, but they're all still going to work, which I just find unbelievable because I guess it was
The restaurant's probably still turning over some cash though.
Yeah, and there was an office, so there were people still in jobs doing their
jobs.
Was just doing their jobs.
Yeah.
Correct, and everyone was just, it was still kept ticking. I'm not saying that it was doing particularly well one way or the other, but it was obviously surviving and she was able to siphon money out of it. But then after that trip, they come back to New York and then they go on a big trip. And at this point, they're basically on the run. And at
What do you
this
mean
point,
on the run?
the restaurant closes.
From the
I mean, on the
IRS?
run.
Have
The
they
restaurant-
paid any tax or anything? Oh,
No.
There we go.
Have you ever heard of a saying, on the lam?
Yeah.
I've never heard
Yes,
that.
yes,
God,
yes.
How have I never heard that?
In Catalogue of Cons, you have heard it. You heard it about 6-7 weeks ago when I talked about being
And
on
I
the
said
lam.
the same thing. And I said the same thing again. I've never heard of that up
And
until now. Now I keep seeing
Do
it
not
everywhere.
pick up your
How
phone,
have I
Tony.
missed it?
Apparently, Tony went to pick up his phone because apparently where it came from was that there were a series of pioneers types who left England on the run, effectively, on a ship called the Lamb. And so it comes
Well,
from,
there you
I'm on the
go.
Lamb because they fled to America on a ship called the
Well,
Lamb.
there you
That's where
go.
it came from. But it's dropped the B, so it's LAM when you say I'm on the Lamb.
Ah, yes, yeah.
So,
because I
yes.
Googled it, because I was like, I'm sure that was what we talked about, and then I couldn't remember if that definitely was
I
it.
love
Yeah,
how much
thought-
you
felt
pay
like it-
attention to my stories. Anyway.
Well, she would be
No, it
on the
wasn't that. I
land.
thought it was, but I couldn't. There's so many things that I've never heard before that I was like, that's that thing. I think
She's
that's
vegan.
what
That reminds me of another story about being on that. It's a completely different one, and I might not go into the detail of it, but it's a little bit about I'm on the blob, you're going to have to do me up the shitter. And so...
Not for today.
I just thought that was, on the land.
What is that from? Puberty Blues?
No, from one of my friends. One of my friends. Let's just leave it at that.
No, it's from a movie,
No,
isn't it?
it's actually a thing that happened on the Young Endeavour.
It's from a movie, isn't it?
I don't know. I'm only telling you from my real life.
Is it a real... Do I know it from you? I know
You don't
that
know it
I
from
saying.
probably
me.
said it
I
to
thought
you,
it was from
and
me.
No, you do,
Oh.
through me.
Unless
So
you
you
covered
told me
it in
the
another
story about it.
podcast.
Yeah.
And I thought, no, years ago.
No.
Years
Yeah.
ago. Clark
I know it
told
from
me the
the
story
story, I
years
think.
ago. I thought it was hilarious. So when we're in
Yes,
the UK,
that's
or
how I
at
heard
some
it.
point I have said, "Oh, sorry, I'm on the
Sure.
blob. You'll have to
Yeah.
give me up the shitter," as a joke.
Yeah. It's better than being on the lamb. You'll
to
have to do
shock
me up
you.
the shitter.
To shock you appropriately, and it worked, and it worked again today.
Did you honestly know someone who said
Yes.
that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Oh
well,
my
no,
God.
I
I
know
don't
someone
know.
who was
Do
there
I
when
know
that
them?
was no. So I know someone who was with a
Present.
guy
Yeah.
who said, "Are you Aussie girls all the same?" Because I met someone who said, "I'm on the blob. You're going to have to do me up the shitter."
Last night.
And he was like, "What?" That's a good
And
one.
therefore, all
Oh my
Australian
God.
women obviously think that way.
Yeah, they all think that
Yeah,
when
so
they're on the
I
blob.
Clearly
think
untrue.
I had told you that. Could we stop
Oh,
saying
just
on the blob?
the language,
Stop
the
saying that.
language.
I know.
That's the story, right? It's
I'm
like on
drinking red wine. Do you mind?
every time I hear on the lamb, I'm hearing on the blob for no actual factual reason. It's just like,
No, I don't hear the same.
what
thing.
else can you be on?
The on the.
Yeah.
All right, so they're on the lamb.
In January of 2015, the staff have walked out en masse, and that's it. Like they've already walked out once before, but now they have a protest out the front. They've got placards, and they're basically saying Sarma needs to pay us.
It's like George
because what had happened
Calombaris.
is
Yeah.
and they start using pictures of Sarma where she had been posting. Not recently, but remember I told you that she'd been in Europe and she hadn't paid the time before. They're like, what's going on? You're out there having a life. So at that point, they do start to look into it. And then there is the investors who I don't know who the investors are. I don't know if they came in later in the piece or
sound like the
earlier. They're
family.
not Jeffrey Chadro. It's somebody else.
Like the faceless men.
It's not the family. It's somebody who invested in the restaurant. So while they're on the lamb,
Oh, what do you have to do when you're on the
Sarma
lamb?
has a tattoo. Sarma has a tattoo that's incredibly identifiable. It is on her left arm, I think, just up here, like what do you call it, top of your
And
left arm.
hang on, Carla,
a
does it
heavily
say
inked-
CNT, the only thing missing is you? No, what did it really say then? Sorry.
It didn't say anything. It's a heavily inked lucky duck, so it's just a duck. But because she's so fine, it's just this ugly
duckling.
this duck on her arm. So what's his name?
Duck juice.
Strangers
Waddle,
had
waddle,
her cover it up the whole
quack,
time. They knew
quack,
that because she'd be totally
waddle,
identifiable
waddle.
by that.
Quack.
Quack, quack. Duck poetry.
Sorry.
The duck
So
poetry.
they're identified
Yeah.
by that ugly
Yeah,
tat.
so she does have this tat, and that's another the juice bar was called Lucky Duck, One Lucky Duck. So that's the One
I
Lucky
know.
Duck.
Duck juice.
Brand,
I
the
don't
brand,
like
Yeah,
that.
couldn't
brand
eat a
for
whole
that.
one.
So he has to cover that up, and they just go from one shitty little place to the next. And when she reflects on it, she realizes that they've gone from one place that's got a casino to another. So who do you reckon he's going to get some money from now? He gets in touch with Sarma's
her
mother.
dad? Oh, right. Okay.
No,
Sarma's
the
in
mother.
trouble.
And we don't get to meet the mum.
It's like a
But he
fucking
does, and he
lesson
does
in
that thing.
101.
We need money to help Sarma.
Asshole.
She's not in a good way. I need to do this to help her. And again, the mum is a really apparently somewhat cluey person, but she starts handing the dosh over. So mum's helping to pay for that.
No, and Sarma wouldn't
Adventure.
even know this, would she?
But the
'Cause
funniest thing
she's
is-
crazy or something. So
No, she doesn't.
Family, sometimes we all invest.
no.
a little bit
What I
more than
guess
we should
I
with
know. Sorry,
family,
what I'm trying to
boys?
say is that so he's been. Sorry, was there a joke there that I missed?
No,
Probably.
it wasn't a
No.
joke.
It's
It's
a
something
joke.
actually we did.
No joke.
Oh
Anyway.
yeah. No, we did. No, I agree. No, but
It can
no,
happen to
but
all of us.
no. What I'm
is
trying
all
to say is
saying.
that was so
Yeah.
for us that was direct. What I'm trying to understand is he was
It was legit.
undermining her before in the face of the family. So then when he goes out and
Yes.
asks for help
Mm.
from the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
family, they don't necessarily go back to her to say, "Are you okay, sweetie?" They take his word.
Face value.
They can't.
Gotta-
They can't access her.
And that's the bit I'm trying to understand,
So-
right? So
And just to be
Everything's
clear,
going through
we're talking about her real family, not the family.
yeah,
So
yes.
you're right.
Yes.
He has contacted,
But so from-
he has contacted her
Yeah.
mother, unbeknownst to Sarma. She does not know
Yeah.
this, and he's communicating with Sarma, both as Sarma sometimes, but certainly as Anthony Strangers, and he's asking for money from her, and sometimes threatening her, sometimes not, but usually using Sarma's health and well-being as the lever to sort of get what he wants out of her. But Sarma is not aware of that.
Put her on the phone.
And Sarma, this is what it's just, do you know where they have ended up? You will not believe this. There's a place called, they're in Tennessee where they ultimately end up, and it's called Pigeon Forge. And Pigeon Forge is this tourist town that is just near Dollywood.
No.
Really?
And it is...
Oh,
Let's go.
I'd
love to go to
It
Dollywood.
is to say that it's like this strip of motels and fast food restaurants. And again, I can only imagine what a vegan would. I don't know what she did. She ended up living in this, crappy motel.
She's living on rice or something.
She ends up befriending one
Is dust
person
vegan?
at a Chipotle, and I believe that they must do like a salad bowl or something, and that was the only thing I think she ate. And I think by going there constantly, she ended up sort of having a bit of a friendship with this guy there, but never said anything about who she was. And he said, look, I kind of got the idea that she was on the lam. Because she sort of said, she would have to get back at a certain time, and she was always watching Pigeon Forge, Tennessee.
Everyone's on the lamb.
Yeah.
You're going to have to do me up the pigeon. I'm on the lamb. You're going to have to do me up the pigeon.
Up the pigeon. Oh,
Enough.
Gross.
that
Right.
is vile.
That is
Anyway, so
vile.
they are there they're on the run for 10 months.
What?
And I'm not saying they're in
Oh
Tennessee
my
for the entire
God.
10 months, but it's a long time.
So how long has she been away now?
Well, she's
Like
hardly
a
ever
year,
been
year and
more
a
than.
half?
I would say it's the best part of probably 2 years that she's hardly there. And, the restaurant, the signage, it's all
2
gone. That's the
years,
thing in the
yeah.
past. No one knows where she is. They've got no idea. No
wonder
one's had
it's
any
gone.
contact with her. She will say that she has, she's just...
She's broken.
I don't know what she did, to be honest. She had the dog, so Leon was with them, obviously. So it was just her and the dog, and he was there as well. So there is some footage of them in hotel rooms where she's getting yelled at, where she's just lying in a bed, and he's saying, you've got to get up, you've got to get up. Because I
Right
think
on
he then
time,
becomes a
right
little
on
bit of a
time. Gotta get
liability.
up, gotta get up, gotta get up. Whoa. Gotta get up, gotta get up, gotta get
Excellent
up.
song.
Anyway,
That happened quick.
I did that away from the mic because I
Well
knew it'd be
played,
upsetting.
Wow.
That's because we're responding to the fact that we're hearing the story of a woman who's become a significant subject
Absolutely.
of abuse.
And she just
Domestic
has...
abuse. Like,
She's given up. She just... I mean, I don't know now. She's... All right. And so she just...
yeah.
has just turned. She's just
She's
she
lost
has,
everything.
except Leon.
But
All she's
lost
got is
everything.
Liam. Nothing else yet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Poor bugger.
So, do you want to know how they got caught?
Tell me. Do tell me.
Yeah. Was it in a hoedown?
This is the bit where
Was it Leon?
Was it
What?
dual karaoke?
no, it wasn't Leon's
Please
fault.
tell me it was in a diner.
It was absolutely Anthony Strange's
I was
fault.
hoping it was
No.
going to be dual karaoke.
So, thinking of all the sound bites and all the headlines that would, this would generate, it couldn't be more fitting.
Right.
So Anthony Stranges ordered a pizza from Domino's in his own name, in a credit card in his name, which
Didn't
What a
exist.
flog.
the local authorities were able to find. Yeah. They went to the local Domino's and said, did you fulfill a pizza order for
For a man with a
this
big
Anthony
fat meat
Stranges
suit?
yesterday morning? And they were like,
And a woman with
yeah.
a CNT
actually, it was the only order.
tattoo.
Tattoo.
CNNT tattoo.
A lonely duck
juice.
tattoo. What was it called? Unlucky duck.
A Slurpee of duck juice.
And they said, yes, it was the only order we did yesterday morning.
Yep.
So they
The
went across
only
to the
order they
motel,
did yesterday
went
morning.
to... No, yesterday, because I think it was quite a morning
That's an
pizza. I guess it was a really
unsuccessful
strange
business.
time.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
pizza, you'd be
Random. I
busy.
wouldn't have thought they would open.
It's Domino's. I'm pretty sure they're okay. They knew who it was immediately.
right.
So they went to the motel, went to the receptionist and said, look, we need to... Are these people here? Yes, they are. They've been here for quite some time.
Have they paid the
And
bills?
they
No,
asked-
haven't.
No, the credit card hadn't worked or something
Uh-huh.
like that. So they said, okay, can you get him to come down to the guise of questioning his bill that hadn't been paid? And it was that simple. They came
got him on
down, they
fraud.
arrested him, he didn't say anything. They went
Yeah,
upstairs
fine.
and she was in a separate but adjoining room and the reason they found her or knew what was going on was because they heard Leon bark. Because Leon barked because he'd heard people
I
outside.
was thinking Leon was a
And they
person
walked
for a minute
in.
there. I'm like, geez, that's odd.
And that was it. And she was like, yeah.
She's alive though.
Yeah. She was alive, but she
Bless.
was just, they said that she was unrecognisable from the photographs of the
I bet
woman that
she
they'd seen,
was.
which was obviously the photo in New York. She was just so skinny and run down
Wrecked,
and
ruined,
just,
destroyed.
broken. Yeah. And in the photos of her, that's what they say, because she was proud of her appearance previously. They said that they think that the mugshot photo, and in the mugshot, as someone said, she looks cheap. Like, I know that sounds a really terrible thing to say about somebody, but I don't know. There's a real thinness to her eyebrows, and she's gaunt
It's aging
without
her.
Yeah.
looking slender. Do you know, she just looks rough,
A bit
and
of
like she's,
meth addict
she doesn't
about her
look
or
New
something.
York, vegan, glowing. Because it wasn't that she was ever wearing makeup. I think she's always
Oh,
gorgeous
She's been
naturally, but she
living-
just
Carla,
destroyed.
She's been eating out of
Yeah.
a Chipotle
Yeah.
salad bowl for 10 months.
But to
No,
be
Of course she's
Yeah.
looking gaunt and,
To be
and
fair-
got no vitamins and not glowing.
She needs a good steak.
to be fair, I look in the mirror sometimes and go, "Oh, you're looking a bit rough, doll." You know, you used to be.
I look rough, but I never look gaunt.
You
I
used
know
to be a
this,
bit
'Cause
more
I've got
New
a good
York.
meat suit.
You had a fabulous meat suit.
Yeah.
We all do.
Oh, God. So it was literally just fodder for the tabloids. You've got a vegan on the run who is being
A
caught
vegan
by
on the
them
run.
ordering a
Is
pizza.
that,
and as
is it
the
that
police
Paul
Yeah.
McCartney song?
on the lamb
Vegan on the run.
found the run,
Vegan
vegan on the run.
Sailor Sam and something or other was so
And
vegan.
And
everywhere.
his great Shane Fox.
For
Yeah.
a vegan on the
On the
run.
run.
Vegan on the run.
On the run.
That's it.
I
Yeah.
like that song.
What
It's a
a
Wings number.
what
isn't
a
it?
crime!
Yes, so very which was what is a little bit sort of, well, it's not really sad. It's kind of just what it is. But the policeman in Tennessee said he'd been contacted by so many publications, particularly out of New York, asking about the pizza, and he said, "Look, it wasn't hers." He said there was adjoining rooms. Her room was perfectly tidy with nothing in it. There were a couple. I think there was a book or something. His room was disgusting, and there were wrappers and pizza boxes and shit everywhere. He was just a
Pig.
He was
Slug.
making sure his
Sloth.
meat suit was in the right
He made sure his
state.
meat suit was repulsing her sufficiently.
And my body's too
As a
vegan-licious for you, babe.
Maybe that was one of our old songs, wasn't it,
Oh.
Schmitty?
Oh yeah.
Great song.
When Anthony was arrested, were there any
Yeah.
African American police officers involved?
No, I don't think there
Something I
were.
have to edit out. Mhm.
I just wondered if the black cops got him in the end.
Hey, there you go.
So they go, hey, boom, boom.
Boom.
Ach.
Boom.
Well played. Well played. I would
Oh, very
like it
good.
if the Black Ops got him in the end.
I happen to know that they were both two white Tennessee placements. Yeah.
Oh, well,
I don't know. There's
well
really
they
any black
wouldn't do
cops in
anything
Tennessee
wrong.
anyway.
I don't
Black
get
Ops,
it.
Black Ops.
I don't get it.
Oh,
Oh,
Black
God,
Ops.
doll.
Black Ops.
Oh,
Black Ops.
black
I get
cops.
it.
Oh,
That's when you
Black
labour
Ops,
a
Black
joke
Ops.
that much.
Tone-
It's hard to
Aw.
get sometimes.
I got
Tony,
it. I got
it was
Tony.
very well
I thought it was
played.
just being racist. Okay. It's much
I
more
don't think he was
concerned
trying to
about
make
the
a racial-
overtones.
Like it's
Yeah, all right.
so overtones. Yeah.
Poor
Poor
Rachel.
Rachel.
Black Ops.
Poor Rachel vilification. No one likes her.
That
She's not welcome
That's
at
right.
a dinner party.
The two were accused by the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office of draining Mengelis's 12-year-old raw vegan
Hang on,
restaurant,
sorry,
Pure Food
Carla.
Wine.
I'm lost in all of the shenanigans we've just had.
Sarma.
The two who were accused, Sarma.
Accused. So Sarma and
And
Anthony and
Yeah,
strangers.
so she's in on something she doesn't
Two
know about.
accused by the Brooklyn District, so they were accused of draining her restaurant of nearly $2 million, stiffing employees, duping investors, going on the lam, and spending lavishly on hotels, watches, and casinos. After they left town in May of 2015, Mengelis, I feel like I've changed his name, which is so Carla. Let's just call her
Gary.
Sarma.
Gary
Sarma
in
went
hospital.
from feminist business icon,
Sarah. What did Sarah do?
yeah, Gary,
But
to
Gary.
clickbait. They called her the vegan vixen.
The
and
vegan
very sadly,
vixen.
Oh,
Why? Because she's
and the,
the
vegan
problem?
Bernie Madoff.
how very dare they?
Yeah.
Wow. They called her that.
Yeah. So she became the total focus for everybody's.
Oh, poor bugger.
Well, everyone despised it, and I would sort of want to get onto this a little bit later, but I think that we have an issue when people say they're vegan anyway, because to say that you're vegan, you've got to hold yourself to some serious standards of not just going, pop down to McDonald's and grab whatever I can get. You've got to really manage your life in such a way that
food-related
you are able to
standards,
fulfill,
though, or shoe-related, or
yeah,
clothing-related.
but still, I think it's about a lot of jokes.
It's just a bit of a Gwyneth Paltrow type
Yes,
stuff,
Yeah. They said it was an attention-getting story because of the delicious reek of hypocrisy. She is guilty of conduct unbecoming a vegan. One of the jilted investors, a Boston software entrepreneur, told me.
Vegan. Not because she
It was widely reported that just before the arrest, the couple had ordered a Domino's pizza. Actually, a non-raw, non-vegan cheesy pie plus a side of chicken wings was only for the 300-pound plus strangers. So he'd got a little bit.
300-pound
Orca
plus
fat.
Oh, megawaddy.
Well, so he got bigger and bigger and bigger. And when you see their mug shots, she is literally this skeletal little thing, and he's a bit putty.
A bit.
She's an orca.
300 pounds.
So Carla, sorry, who
but
was
it's
reporting
it's
that?
such a mighty fall from grace. That was widely reported.
Yeah.
I don't know
Pardon the
That's-
pun.
it was widely.
Yeah, by no
Sorry.
specific source. No, that's important.
I don't even know where I'm getting it out. What source? Oh, this is out of Vanity Fair.
Yeah, right. No,
Okay.
because I want to call that out when I get to my sentencing, because I'm not okay with that.
Yeah.
Yes, she's a vegan. Yes, therefore she has food principles and animal principles,
Yep.
but it doesn't mean she's superhuman.
Well, she was hoping to become that, though, wasn't she? So he ends up at 300 plus pound. He was the one who placed the order for the pizza. Obviously, it was for him. It's just such a huge fall from grace. We're at the Fairfield Inn and Suites in Pigeon Forge, just down the road from Dollywood, in the foothills of the Great Smoky Mountains. It's not somewhere. I mean, honestly, if you watch the documentary, it is about as far away from the hub and bub of Gramercy Park in New York, and the well-to-do and highfalutin people that would be around there. It is tragic, really. Just that it just got that mucky.
It's like he's consumed her energy as well, though. It's
Yeah,
like
he just
sucked
took
her
everything from
life
her.
away from her. Yeah.
So Paul did a quick
He was
calculation.
alerted to a police
so he's
presence by Leon
136
Sparking.
kilo.
She was reading a book that she'd bought at Goodwill, which I assume is a op shop or
Yeah,
a
op shop.
shoe shop.
Yeah.
Yep, she'd been subsisting on vegan bowls from a nearby Chipotle. She begged the officers to treat the dog with care. Brooklyn District Attorney Ken Thompson announced they were finally caught, and we intend to now hold them accountable for this outrageous thievery and fraud. Yes.
But it's all right.
So was
They take them back
was
to
the charge that they were arrested outrageous thievery and fraud, or was there actually a real charge?
There was. So they take them back to New York, and she's held at the county jail before she's transferred to Rikers,
for the holiday house swap.
Well, she got a good meal for once.
where some of her female cellmates taunted her, asking if it was true that vegans taste better.
Oh, well.
You didn't react to
How
that,
very
guys.
You couldn't eat a whole one.
Probably.
I can't believe I'm saying their nickname for her was Sweet Pussy.
Not magic.
But to former employees who used to call her Sarma Mama for turning the workplace into a surrogate family, and social media followers who lusted after her vegan deluxe life of
Oh,
dresses,
thank God.
dynamic
I thought you were going to
TV
say
appearance
vegan
and
deluxe
customers.
pussy, not vegan deluxe life of tight dresses.
It says, I don't know how she got mixed up with Anthony. Strange's own stepmother, Ellie Strange, said, a woman like her? What did she see in Anthony?
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Sama lost her mind,
Post-incident.
said the novelist.
Yeah, exactly.
Kapoor.
Post-incident, that's a really appropriate comment, but, that's the easy.
I think this is quite interesting because it sort of it brings us back to why
Absolutely.
we think she did any of it in the first place, and her friends maintain that it relates to Leon. It says a source close to Melngailis describes a scenario in which strangers resorted to cult-like techniques, including gaslighting, sleep deprivation, and sexual humiliation to control her. Perhaps if you can understand how a sane, successful businesswoman comes to believe the insane idea that her dog can live forever, everything else snaps into focus. How that person might be accused of bilking her investors of $844,000, owe her employees more than $40,000 in unpaid wages, financially strip her restaurant, and now find herself awaiting trial with a potential 15-year sentence. She had thought all harm would be magically reversed just as Leon's lifespan would be extended, according to her camp.
Yeah, but I'm not even sure that she was like as cognizant of how much money was being siphoned away and how much people were being ripped off, or she was just so far down a spiral where it was like, I can't cope with it anymore, I can't do anything about it anyway. So the only thing she can hang on to is the idea of Leon being with her.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, he had access to everything. He took everything from her. I don't think you covered it, but I feel like Will was the same person.
Oh, yes. So Will is Anthony Strange's, of course.
Right.
But he did. It was convincing in the sense that he did have a different
persona, way of talking.
He must have had his own brand book, his own lookbook, because he did have a different voice.
Yeah,
and and it was very, very astute, very businesslike, very
Black Ops.
I think it was actually from movies. I really do. It was like a movie. No, I just read something that I hadn't seen before, and it was more about
Turns
how
out she was a con woman all along. No,
no, not at all. It was to Clarkie's point about how did she start to engage with him in the first instance, and they're sort of suggesting that they think that Alec Baldwin, they think that he was using, he would have figured that sort of like through 6 degrees of separation somewhere in his sphere or in his universe, someone would be worth money to him. And I think he started looking to exploit that. And then it was through Sarma, he found someone he could sort of start to talk to. And then from that point, he started to be quite clever, so that he was sort of winning her. He used Leon to win her over. And it says here, Mr. Fox seemed to know just what to tweet to win Sarma's heart. In October 28, 2011, Melngailis blew a Twitter kiss to Mr. Fox for guessing why she named her dog Leon, even though she'd posted on her easily searchable blog a year earlier that it was from Leon the Professional, the Luc Besson film about a hitman. Right. If anyone who guesses it, usually I get guesses for Kings of Leon. And so, stuff like that, if he was clever enough to do everything else, he's just gone back and found the answer. So he's already feeding into what's important.
100% catfished her. He's researched her. Like, he's targeted her, and she's facing 15 years.
I'm so sorry for her.
No, that doesn't. Well, that's potentially at the time, but that doesn't play out like that. Right. So what essentially happens is they both go to Rikers. She gets bail, and someone posted. I don't know who does. I can't.
I hope she puts up some good Insta photos like you would on your trip to Rikers. Here I am at Rikers. Anyway,
I'm going to have to go there, aren't I? With my trial by wine.
I got the morning shuttle before the kids woke up.
Live from Rikers. Set up my little laptop. We've got Swanny calling in from Rikers.
I've got a Rikers coffee cup.
I had to get up at 5 a.m. this morning to capture this sunset.
Yeah,
but
it's like the Rikers edition.
Doing my duck face in front of Rikers.
Live from Rikers. Okay, so she's there. She gets bail. She leaves. I think she's there for 9 days to start with. But he stays, and he's there for a year because he doesn't know on post bail. And then when
he's not going to keep that fat suit.
I don't know. I think I don't know where the hell he is.
Call me Bubbles, darling. Everybody does.
Anyway, so she
get in my belly.
She pleads guilty, basically. Anyway, you know how much time she only served 4 months.
I didn't.
That's exactly what I think of when I think of him.
Yeah.
Is that sort of meat suit? Someone who's just an absolute ass. And the way he speaks to her, you wait till you hear it. He's just
that awful. Would make a maggot gag.
It's a baby. Get in my belly.
My belly. That's exactly what I think of him.
You do that very well, Schmitty. It's not that we're fat shaming.
This individual has asked for our shame.
No, we're not.
Sorry,
So, on December 19, 2016, prosecutors offered Sarma a plea deal in which she would agree to serve 1 to 3 years in prison. Her attorneys reported by Vanity Fair to be planning a coercive control defence.
Yeah.
And then Sarma pleaded guilty in May 2017 to stealing more than $2 million from investors and scheming to defraud, as well as criminal tax fraud charges. She received a jail sentence of nearly 4 months. And she filed for divorce from strangers in May 2018. So he never went back to jail, and she only did 4 months.
Serious?
Yeah.
He never went back. How long did he do?
No, a year.
Less
A
than
year.
her.
No, a year.
No, but
No,
he
she did
was
less.
just on bail.
She only did 4
did
months.
he do
Right.
anything?
Plus 9 days. He was just stuck there.
Hang on. He was stuck in Rikers.
Well, you need
Did
to
he
find out
not
what
have a subsequent trial
Yeah,
and
for a year.
subsequent sentencing? Or do they give it away because he was already in custody for a year and then they said, well, we'll
Give
we'll
it
call
away,
done.
give it
Time
away,
to
give it
already
away
serve.
Give it away
now.
now.
That's
Give
the
it
Red
away,
Hot Chili
give it away,
Peppers
give it away
defense.
now. That's right.
Give it away, give it away now.
Let's see if I can find out what he did in the end. He had been married before, and he had a bit of a track record. So he was married to a woman called Stacey.
Stacey. Yeah.
Stacey.
No, they call me Stacy. They call me
They call me
Jane.
Jane.
That's not my name. That's not my name. What was her real name?
I don't know if we find out.
He had been married to Stacey Avery, and he told her that he'd inherited $5 million from, I think, an aunt that had died. So they started spending up big, and then, of course, the check never came.
Shocking.
And then they had a baby
A
because she was
bubba.
pregnant at the same time.
Get
And
in
then
my
one
belly.
night, and then the dad was in on it. So the dad, he also said that he'd been shot and that he'd been in the military and then there was a wound, and the dad helped, corroborate the story. So she said, I believed it all to start with, but he's just a scammer. And then he just left. She was lucky. I reckon she dodged a bullet. He just got up and left and never saw him again. And it wasn't until Sarma reached out after this all happened that they were actually able to say, oh, yeah, that sounds about right. His behaviour is exactly what he's done else. It's just a con artist.
Just to be clear, what were they charged with?
Fraud.
I'm trying to find. I don't know why I can't find it all of a sudden. Yes, grand larceny. I know. I don't know where I've got it in my notes because now I'm googling it. I still can't find it. The exact sentences because it's got to do with fraud and grand larceny, which is basically stealing.
And stealing in the context of not paying people properly, or stealing in the context of
Yes. Well, also taking the money from the
Borrowing
restaurant.
money from people
Yeah,
and
so-
stealing from the restaurant.
no, but
Yeah.
but no. So as the owner of the restaurant, I don't know that you can be charged with
Yes.
stealing money from your own restaurant.
She wasn't the owner. I don't think it works quite like that. They're investors who own the restaurant,
A
right?
bunch of people gave money to invest in it.
Yeah.
That was siphoned off into her personal account, which shouldn't have happened, and then the husband took it because he was controlling everything. So that's grand larceny.
So the crime there is
So the
theft
crime would
from
be
the investors.
Yeah, imagine this in this amazing world where this podcast ever makes money, and it's all in a business account, and I just take it all. That would be theft, right? From you two. So it's like that.
I can't imagine.
That's larceny.
No,
isn't
can
it?
you
Is that
can you
plea
put it
guilty to
into
larceny,
something?
tax fraud, and conspiracy to defraud?
Well,
Can you put it into something a
$9
little
that we
bit more
make.
realistic? Because I don't really understand what it is that you're
The
saying.
$9 that we make currently, were I
When-
to
when
take
you
all
said
of
to
the
me,
$9
my
as
dog
opposed to
would
just $3.
achieve immortality. if
Aren't
I
you just
did
living
this.
off the interest,
I
Smitty?
haven't even banked it. It's still sitting in Patreon.
Oh, you're
No
just
point
living
pulling
off
it
the
down.
interest.
It's just offensive to pull it down. Sorry, Paul.
Thank you, Danielle.
Thank you, Danielle. And what's
Um,
wrong with all the rest of you who enjoy our content? About time you became patrons too. Anyway, moving on.
No, I'm just it's important to me to try to understand what the crime is that the law sees in this.
Not paying your
To
staff.
understand. No, that bit
Yeah.
that bit I can get right.
Totally get.
I understand, but as someone and this is where I was going, if someone owns a restaurant and they take money from it, that's not stealing. That's just bad
She doesn't
business.
own it though. So what she's doing of the money that's running,
It
the
should
money
be
that
paying
runs
the
the
investors
restaurant,
back.
and she takes that. Yeah, so if she's
But-
taking money from that and putting it in her personal account, that's stealing.
No, but
That's what she's
but
done.
then that's possibly
Before
just
she's given
loan defaulting on loans.
So she was just taking whatever they had, and the money that they were supposed to be using for other stuff, she was just using it for her own needs.
Mm.
So needs what he wanted. That money is there to run the business. It's not there for you to, and it's not profit. I don't think there was profit, to be honest, by the sounds of things. It was just like the cost of running a restaurant was huge.
Running a restaurant into the ground isn't even a crime, though. Like, it's as long as you pay people
No,
along the
that's not
way,
a
and
crime.
that's what I'm trying to get my head around. What's the legal crime here? And it's okay if we don't know. I just
Grand larceny, scheme to defraud.
Mm.
That's it. That's what they've said.
Right.
Criminal tax, where they wouldn't have paid the tax.
Are we
Okay.
going to do some sentencing?
Yes.
Yeah, I think there's two things that I sort of wanted to bring up, which were things that we can sort of factor into the sentencing. One of them was, do you think people are trying to hold somebody who positions themselves as a vegan to a higher standard? I don't know that really comes into it. I think that in all the stuff that I read, she never really seemed to be banging on about it. That was just part of who she was, and that was her business. But it wasn't that she was at any point ever sort of trying to put herself on a pedestal or anything like that. She didn't seem to have that sort of character. I think that she was really a person who genuinely was passionate about vegan food and the animals.
Like how
and stuff.
people have been nasty about Jamie Oliver because some of his restaurants have failed, when all Jamie Oliver's been trying to do is get people to eat better.
Eat healthy, yeah, certainly in schools in the UK.
See, I don't see a connection between veganism and high principles. I see a connection between veganism and possibly better eating, but also animal welfare. So there's those two things that go, yeah. But does that mean that they're good with climate change or social policy or a whole range of other things that are also important to society? I don't think there's any connection between that. And like any principled person, if you're principled on one point, doesn't mean you principled across all points. And so 100%, I do not hold vegans on a high pedestal. In fact, I get frustrated like anyone who's principled about the way they try to impose their beliefs on me. Let's all appreciate each other's beliefs and acknowledge them and be okay with that. So eat what you want. I don't care. That's not on me.
It was just a thought, but it seemed to creep up quite a few times. And there's quite a few things at the moment that are in, I don't know if it's so much in the media, but why are we obsessed with con stories or stories about a cult? And I think we all watch them and we put ourselves in their shoes and think, God, at what point would you have just gone, what? And then the hard part is then someone who was, successful, popular, beautiful, educated, all those things.
Who, as far as I'm concerned, have been conned, who have been sucked into cults.
Yeah.
They don't see it, but I know, I see it. That's my way of, that's my perception of the situation.
Hands up if you've been conned. Stuart and I both have our hands up.
Probably, yeah. Like, that's my point.
Okay.
Probably, I don't know.
We all want to think that we could see it.
Did you have to give up your body and
wear a meat suit?
No, we did that just for
wear
fun.
a meat suit, or we all just promised, that your pets
forever,
would live
yeah.
for.
I mean, I think
forever.
Yeah,
it happens.
That's the point. Is that really good cons are really good, and you look at this and you go, how could an intelligent woman, how could a woman who had this education, how could a person so successful, how could she possibly? It happens. People, and the other thing is what we don't appreciate is the emotional triggers that he was pulling on her. The thing about the dog, the thing about she's obviously lonely. There's something else there. He's just one of those magnets to it. He's one of those people. It's like the Nexium thing. He could read people's vulnerabilities, like that Ranieri, the bloke that was in Nexium. He knew how to completely find her weaknesses and play them. And it could happen to anyone, is the point.
I do appreciate that, and I can even recognise it in my own life where I've had unsuccessful relationships and how I interacted with certain people at certain points in my life and things that I allowed to happen and or would live with. And I think,
wouldn't do that now. That's right.
What were you thinking?
As I said before, explain to me why I was attracted to any of my previous partners. Exactly the same thing. How did that happen? But it did. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, crimes, I think we're clear on. We're clear on who committed them.
Yep.
I'm not clear on crimes, and I'm not clear on who committed them.
Carla, can you cover grand larceny again?
No. Like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and expecting a different outcome. Please don't try to cover that again.
Oh, do you know what you should really do with that? You should put that on a little poster on your wall. You'd love that. That motivational one. The definition of insanity.
No, that's my life.
Oh.
That's... we don't need to go down that path. I don't think it's black and white at all. I'm not clear on the crime. I'm not clear on who committed it, but I'm willing to proceed.
Okay. Well, if you could do that, that would be good.
Okay, I'll try.
What will you be sentencing them to? Or who will you be sentencing?
Well, Schmitty, I think you should go because you're clearly all over this shit.
Oh, look,
Alec Baldwin.
I think his karma's got him
Murder.
already in the ass, so we'll move on from that.
He's got his own problems.
Yeah, he's got his own crosses to bear, so we won't go there.
How many kids has he
I
got?
think there's like
10
8,
kids.
isn't there? I'm gonna have
lots of children, according to Carla.
8 or 10.
Many,
More
and
importantly,
like
Yeah.
a manslaughter case against him. So.
And he knows
Yeah.
that his gun is loaded if he's got 10 kids.
Oh, anyway, that was
Or-
in bad taste.
Or used to be anyway. Maybe it wasn't loaded, and that's why he doesn't have an 11.
Out now.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anywho, sorry about that, Mr. Baldwin, and your people. Please don't sue us. Oh, and if you're going to sue someone, sue Tony. He said it, not me. Okay. There is a part of me that, as much as I've talked at great length about how she was a victim of domestic abuse and coercive control, there's still a part of me that says, seriously, it's just dumb fuckery, that you allowed yourself. But, I can see it happening, but also, really? But okay. So I'm on the scales, if they're the scales of justice in my mind, they're kind of flat,
yeah.
like I can't quite go one way or the other. There's no moment that makes me say, oh no, she absolutely did know she was doing the wrong thing. It was more, yeah, maybe I'm doing the wrong thing, but I'm so battered or emotionally controlled at this point that I can't rail against it. So I'm going to leave her, and I'll leave that to the ravages of Clarkey if he's going to go there.
The ravages
But
of
I am-
Clarkey. Is that a part of Trial by Wine World? There's like just this.
It sounds like, well, it does.
I thought they were the
It's a
first.
right.
I'm gonna
Mordor.
sentence you to the
Right.
yeah,
Does sound like
exactly.
fun.
Ravages of Clarkey.
Oh,
God.
I don't meet the height requirement. I can't go on the ravages.
Yeah. I don't mean the resilience.
I really want to go on the
requirement.
ravages of Clarkey.
Am I the only person who's picturing like rapids and lots of fast
Yes,
running
me
water
too.
with the
Yes.
ravages of Clarkey
Yeah.
as
No.
some
No,
kind of-
no, not at all.
No,
No, we
I'm
were
sorry.
dreaming
Yeah,
Mordor.
I am.
We- like,
I am, Schmitty.
We were dreaming
No, I'm
desolation,
definitely
like
water.
fire from above.
Mordor.
Yeah.
No.
Like, wow, okay.
Mine was a water-based ride.
Yeah, mine
with,
was
round
water-based
thing
too.
that everyone's spinning around in it. Yeah.
It could
maybe
be.
fall over and drown. It's the ravages of
No,
Clarkey.
I'm sorry. I want to go on the ravages of Clarkey. I'm sorry. Maybe next year when you're a bit taller.
I don't know. That's
No.
what I saw. Maybe it's because rapids and ravages is sort of in my head. Anyway,
Yeah.
so leaving that alone. I'm basically going straight for Strangers Fox because Strangers Will Fox, his new name. I recently, we had a little bit of a break, and I was looking around at things that could be interesting punishments, and I didn't know when I was going to pull this one out, but I'm pulling it out now.
Oh,
Did you look
By
at
George,
punishments?
here it
Uh-oh.
It wasn't a
comes.
punishment.
Did you Google?
It was
Did you Google punishments?
Brace
Or just see
yourself.
punishments?
No. It was more well, there's lots of torture and stuff, but no, I just came across this story and thought I feel like this could be something that we could set up in Trial by Wine World as a punishment. I'm going to introduce you, if you're not already aware of it, to the world of Russian slapping championships.
Oh my lord!
And
Jesus.
this is
Oh.
where let's
It's a
just
Russian
say
army technique, isn't it?
Tell me this isn't what
Nineveh.
Ukraine are under fire on at the moment.
no.
I don't want to make light of a
Putin's got
bad
them out there doing
situation, but I
Russian
just couldn't
slapping.
let that go.
Well before the Ukraine. Let's just say a sport that is suited to people with the size
Sport.
of man's meat suit that our friend has. And so I am going to say, I've got a little video I'm going to show you. I'm sorry about this, viewers.
Please don't. Is it like slap it and
No,
catch
it's
the
not
next
done.
wave?
It's Russian slapping. There's a guy called Dumpling who was...
I've seen that movie. It's great.
No.
What?
Dumpling.
Not Dumpling.
Yes.
It's a lovely film. We've seen it too, but that's not what I'm talking about.
Oh, is that with Jennifer Aniston?
Yes.
Yes.
I love
Yes,
how
yeah,
you.
yeah.
I love,
Oh,
love how
lovely.
you know so much
Give
about
it a watch.
celebrities. You're amazing.
Oh, it's a lifetime.
Oh
Dedication.
no! Yes, sorry, Schmitty. When you're ready, you just interrupt.
So this is Russian slapping, and this
What?
he's the champion, the one who just did the slap, the former champion.
Oh, red
And here comes this other guy. Ready for it?
Fuck yeah! Oh, what?
He had to be hospitalised apparently after that.
Oh.
What? Did he punch him or slap
He
him?
slapped him. He slapped him
Had to be
hard.
hospitalised?
He was the former champion. After that moment, no longer the champion. Basically, there's a sport where two guys stand over what looks like a 44-gallon drum, a barrel, and one slaps one in the face, and the other one slaps one in the face, and the one who gets knocked out, they have a slap off. So our mate, Strangest Will Fox, is going to front up to whomever the current champion is, and it's, you know, whether it's this new bloke or, because I can't speak Russian, so I don't know what that is, this new bloke or Dumpling or whoever, I don't care, and he's just going to get a good slapping. And every time he thinks of going gambling or being misogynistic or abusing a woman or having a Domino's, he's going to get a good fat slap. In Trial by Wine World, Clarkie's, what is Ravages? The Ravages of
Clarkie.
Ravages of Clarkie.
Yeah.
Well,
Jesus.
it's actually just it's like a little sideshow next to the Ravages of Clarkie.
That'd be what would happen in the
Russian
lineup.
slapping stand.
Sideshow alley.
If you were queuing to get a ticket to the Ravages of Clarkie, that's what would happen.
In the lineup.
Like, that's not even fucking...
Yeah.
You're not even in yet.
Street theatre.
Because when you're queuing,
We've got performers doing that, haven't we?
It's performance
Yeah,
art. You
yeah.
get to see Strangest Will Fox getting slapped in the face every 20 minutes. It's great.
Yeah.
Unless he asks for a
I know,
Domino's,
it's like,
then it's every
that's
5
somebody's
minutes.
job when they turn up in the morning. It's like, oh, what are you doing today? What character are you? Oh, I'm on the Ravages of Clarkie. I'm doing the Russian bitch slap.
That's right.
Oh, right. Oh, I did that last week. It's exhausting. Yeah.
I feel like that would be if there really was a Ravages of Clarkie space in Trial by Wine World, in the lineup...
There is now.
In the lineup, the person who's being sentenced to the slapping, if you're in the queue to get in, you would have to slap that person just to even prove that you're worthy of coming into that world. Then it's fucking game on from there. Because that's not how I would ravage someone. I agree that that's a very good punishment for old mate, but that's...
Up until last week, he was the champion. It was only, and I'd been like, oh, yeah, Dumpling, yeah, I'm ready for this. And then I'm like, oh, my God.
Well, you've been following him.
Exactly. Like, what?
Dumpling's been dethroned.
Who are you?
He's been overthrown.
Why have you never mentioned
You're
this
like
before?
a proper fan. You're following.
Oh, I've only discovered it recently. I was following it so I could use it as a sentence. I tell you, I've been researching. I've been doing my job here, guys.
I want Vladimir Zelensky to fucking slap the fuck out of Putin.
Let's get them a drum.
Let's stop.
Let's buy a
Very
drum.
Let's stop the
I'll get one
killing.
from work.
Fuel. We probably couldn't afford a barrel of fuel at the moment, so we might have to have an
Just
empty
an
one.
empty one's fine.
Yeah.
Some coals.
We could use our shopper docket vouchers and get one.
Yes, we'll have a whip around.
Oh, God. All right.
Go Clarkie.
Clarkie.
We're trying to organise a slap
Has
off.
that given you an opportunity to think about your sentencing?
No, because I'm oh God, here we go.
Uncertain what grand larceny is.
I'm distracted by the fat
honestly,
Russians and their meat suits.
I don't know what they did wrong. One of the
in true overthinking style, I am still trying to ascertain what the crime is, and therefore I'm struggling with what the punishment is. But so I want to explore what's the crime here. Is the crime only on the man or on the woman? Does she, as the business owner, have a certain responsibility to look after people regardless of her life outside of the business? Or is he just a manipulative fuck? You know, do we need to teach our women to be stronger and less subservient?
Ooh, I'll have to pull you up on, do we need to teach our women? How about we teach our men not to be a bunch of shunts?
Yeah, no. So I'm on board with that. What I'm saying is that I feel like for years we've told women that they need to. No, but I'm singing the same song. You know, for years we've told women that they need to be
vegan on the run.
Vegan on the run. Yeah, no, because this is
not a woman
really
basher.
really
It's-
important, right? My concern here is that she's a victim of what happened to her 20 odd years ago, and if we can now start to say to women or to young girls, you don't have to behave a certain way, you don't have to act a certain way, you should do what you feel is right. Then when the wolf from Peter and the Wolf comes along and says you need to do this, they'll go, fuck off, mate, that's rubbish. Because I think that for me, if someone said to me, I'll make your dog immortal or whatever, I'd go, mate, are you pulling my dick, Veronica? Like, this is where I move from a possibility to just a complete improbability. And so I would like us to make sure that what we tell our women now are
Not everyone's as rational as you, though.
I get that, but I do think that I think the way that we've brought up young girls, particularly in the past, makes them second guess themselves way too much. So let's try to stop that. So just as it's not a punishment, but just as a rule for society, let's make sure that we empower our children, male or female, but so non-binary, like whatever. I just think let's empower people to be confident in who they are, not undermine them all the time. Because then when the wolf, who is Shane Fox or whatever name he gives himself, comes along, they'll go, mate, I'm not that needy. I don't want that. I'm not okay with what you're selling. Move along. So that's not a punishment, nor is it a crime. It's just a little bit of what's going on in my head at the moment. From his perspective, he's just a waste of space. Like, I've got nothing nice to say about him, and therefore, anything that is bad for him is good. But so, Schmitty, if you could just use your punishment for him to get him into
Clarky World.
Yeah, it wasn't Clarky World. What was the term?
The Ravages of Clarky.
Ravages of Clarky.
Clarky.
Yeah. If you can get him through the gates of the Ravages of Clarky, I'll take it from there, and it won't be pretty. If I've got to look at what he's done, he's promised the world and under-delivered, and he's a fuck for that, and he should be held accountable. And if that means he rots in hell, awesome. If that means he comes to Ravages of Clarky, well, I'll peel him.
So yours is like a Mordor, like the Mountain of Mordor. Is yours like the Mountain of Doom? Is that what you see the Ravages of Clarky as being?
No, I guess because it's only a new concept, and I don't want to restrict the Ravages of Clarky.
Yeah.
What I guess
like
where I'm at the moment,
anywhere in Middle Earth now.
No, I'm at the pearly white gates, right? So if you're going into heaven, before you do that, you've got to get through the pearly white gates. If you're coming to the Ravages of Clarky, I want to know what you've done, why you're here, why we should let you in, and once we let you in, I understand all of that, then fucking game on. But I don't have a clear thing on that. Let me process the Ravages of Clarky a bit more.
That's fair enough. It only came up as a concept today, so All right, so Carla.
But it's certainly where he's going.
He's going there. We just don't know what it looks like yet. All right, Swanny. What do you think?
Okay, well, there's sort of two people that I would like to comment on. One, of course, is Sarma. And I think that I do have a large degree of empathy for Sarma. I think that she was a good person and she stood for some good things. And I think this whole thing took her down a path that she was ill-prepared to handle. But the thing that sort of kept bothering me the most was, for someone who was such a mother-like figure, you wouldn't necessarily have needed to be the greatest business person in the world, but the fact that she just left her staff to kind of rot, survive, whatever, without her, if she was such a great... I know what it's like to be a manager of people. I don't... 65. Yeah.
And my partner often complains
Exactly.
about how much energy I put into them over him. So it's
Yeah.
quite,
And that's
especially
what
when
I
it's your
can't
own
understand
business
about
too.
that.
Like
Is the
it
one
is
hole
odd.
for me. Yeah, so that doesn't sit comfortably with me. The other stuff I sort of think, well, if it's not even about the money so much. It's about her personal relationships with these people who were so loyal to her, totally believed in her vision. There's no doubt they worked tirelessly for her. And when
She
when it
let
all
them
started to go
down.
pear-shaped, she just flaked.
Yeah.
And then it was just not, she didn't even really make excuses. She just was like, just wasn't there. And I think that that's wrong. And I would like to see her, I'd like her to repay the money. I don't think the money is a huge amount really in the whole scheme of things. I would certainly think they should be paid. But I think that she needs to apologise for them in person. I think she needs to take the time to have to sit there and be accountable, because it's probably not a lot, and probably so much time has passed it's not so much
Couldn't
they
give
could
a
care.
shit.
But I think they're owed that. And then their right of reply can be fuck off. They don't have to care. I don't even know. But I think that I don't particularly want to punish her, but I want her to have to feel
Be accountable.
correct. You were running this family type operation where these people did amazing things for you.
It's like
because they believed in you.
when Jetstar went broke and people worked for Jetstar for free for a period of time to try and save it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like people that engaged in a brand will
Yes,
do that sort
yeah.
of stuff,
Yeah.
not necessarily to their benefit, but
No.
it sounds like that's what her staff, they were so
Yeah.
bought into the brand that they were prepared
Yeah.
to work
Yeah.
for nothing and try and keep that thing running, even though she and or he were taking the money out. Yep.
I feel that they were truly cheated. Whereas, like, when you talk about the interactions that they had with her friends or her family, mother, brother, mother, sister, and father, I wasn't getting that much of a commitment from them. Whereas these guys were really invested with their whole life and their careers and whatever else. And she just sort of was like, no. So that I would like to have seen addressed. And with respect to our friend Anthony Strangus, I mean, what a douchebag, really. I mean, just an absolute pretender. And we have these characters in Trial by One constantly. And I sort of revert to type, which is I always try and work out what's motivating them. So therefore, how could I punish them in a sense that would really piss them off, because I don't really want to hurt anybody. But this guy, who seems to think he's other than human, I would like for his very existence to be very human, and the sufferings and the failings that humans have, which can be brutal just in their banality. Do you know what I mean? I'd like to see him have to carry the heaviness of his meat suit.
Brilliant.
So carry the weight, carry the shame, and really just
Take the shame.
Take the shame,
Take the
mate.
shame.
suffer the things that normal people do, not having enough money, not having healthcare, not having things that people struggle with on a
It's gonna hurt
day-to-day
your
basis
heart.
that make us human. Exactly. That it just really basic shit that some people, their very existence is just trying to overcome that. So not about gambling or getting money from the next person or getting a flash watch. None of that. Just really basic human stuff that, whether it be through illness or heartache or, losing something, but really suffering, just that, what being human really is. None of
Suffering.
this bullshit about being,
Yeah.
some ethereal other thing that's, a non-human. So, yeah, I just like to see him suffer a little bit like the rest.
Suffering
Oh,
your jocks.
Suffering your
God,
jocks,
yeah.
mate. I love that.
Yeah.
I've had another thought
Yeah.
though, Carla, while you've been talking, and it's not. I don't know if it's good or not, but I want to share it with you. Edit it out as appropriate.
Yeah.
It reminds me a little bit of Bobby Brown and Whitney Houston, because he was always on a downward spiral, and I feel like he's a classic example of how someone who is not on a good path can drag someone down who is on a good path. And to me, she's a super tragic story. Her story, not she, her story is a super tragic story, because I think we all were amazed by her in her day, and then the fact that she died the way she did was a bit horrific, and maybe there's a little bit of parallel between Sharma was a really
Sarma.
Yeah. I think Sharma's not quite right. Yeah.
Sarma Melngailis. Sarma.
Clearly a really good person, super good at what she did. Met someone who took her down a certain path, and I don't know what an appropriate punishment for Bobby Brown is, but maybe it's similar to.
He should have been euthanized.
Toothpicks in his eyes.
Euthanized.
Corkscrews.
That was toothpicks in his eyes.
Are we going to drag it out?
Is he still alive? All of them are dead.
No, he's still alive.
I think
the daughter died. The daughter died.
Someone else has died.
Her daughter died.
Her
daughter died not long after.
Christina Bobby.
Exactly the same way as her mother.
Right.
Yeah, all the talented
Very
people
similar.
die in this space, and non-talented people are resilient.
Fuck them. Angers me. It angers me.
Good chat.
All right. Yes, good chat. I think there's only one appropriate way to respond to this case. Let's do it.
And
the first one said to the second one, I hope you're having fun.
Vegan
on the run.
And the sailor man said to Sailor Sam,
we're searching everyone for the vegan
on the run. Vegan on the run.
Vegan on the run.
Vegan on the run. It's vegan on the run we're singing. Nice work.
Okay, sorry. There we go. All right.
Done.
Well,
All right.
excellent work, Swanny. Great job, Clarky. Again, bringing it home, bringing all the issues to bear and a good little bit of wings at the end. So great job, everyone. I'll finish this.
We're all dead.
All right. Great job, everyone. And as I say every other week, and I learned it from Clarky, miss you already.
Ciao, guys.
Love you long time.
Ciao, Bella.
Ciao. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to Trial by Wine. You can contact us at trialbywine@gmail.com. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Trial by Wine on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support us, you can become a patron at www.patreon.com, Trial by Wine, or visit our website, www.trialbywine.com, to donate to us. Your support will help us cover many more cases and apply wacky sentences. We really appreciate you listening and hope you tell everyone about us. Our cover art is by John Christo and music is by Beauchamp from pixabay.com.